There is a restlessness in the air, isn't there? You feel it in the morning, before your feet even touch the floor. The phone on the nightstand, already glowing, with notifications, with demands, with the world's endless noise. The day ahead feels like a mountain, steep and formidable, covered in a fog of obligations, meetings, expectations, worries. You move through your day, a ship navigating a turbulent sea. The waves are the pressures of work. The currents are the unspoken tensions in relationships. The winds are the relentless voices of social media, telling you who you should be, what you should want, how you are falling short. And in the quiet moments, the rare moments of stillness, another kind of storm can arise. The one inside your own mind, the storm of past regrets and future anxieties, the feeling of being adrift, of being disconnected from something essential, something real. You have tried to find an anchor. You have tried to be stronger, to be more efficient, to organize your life into neat little boxes. But the restlessness remains, a quiet ache, a longing for clarity, a longing for a peace that is not dependent on everything going perfectly, a longing for a way to simply be. What if that peace is not something you need to build, but something you need to uncover? What if the clarity you seek is already within you, buried beneath the noise? The teachings of the Buddha, preserved for over 2,500 years in the Theravada tradition, do not offer a magical cure. They offer a path, a gentle, practical path to understanding the nature of your own mind, and in doing so, finding a freedom that is unshakable. Today, we will walk that path together through the timeless wisdom of ancient stories. Let the world outside fall away just for a while. Of course, here is one, rewritten and expanded to approximately 1,500 words, maintaining the specified tone and depth. 1. The parable of the poisoned arrow, focusing on what truly matters. Let us begin our journey in a place of deep stillness. Imagine yourself walking through a vast, ancient forest. The air is cool and smells of damp earth, of decaying leaves and fragrant moss. Sunlight filters down through a cathedral of leaves high above, painting the forest floor in shifting patterns of light and shadow. The only sounds are the gentle rustle of the wind and the distant call of a bird. There is a sense of peace here, a sense of timelessness. Then, in an instant, the peace is shattered. A sound like a whip crack cuts the air, and a shocking, searing pain explodes in your leg. It is a pain so sudden, so violating, it takes your breath away. You cry out and stumble, falling to your knees. Looking down, your mind struggles to comprehend the sight. There, embedded deep in your flesh, is an arrow. Its wooden shaft is trembling from the force of the impact. The tip is coated with a dark, glistening substance. A substance your deepest instincts tell you is a potent poison. Panic begins to rise in your throat, cold and sharp. The serene forest has transformed into a place of mortal danger. Your friends, who were walking with you, rush to your side. Their faces are a mirror of your own shock and fear. They see the arrow, the poison, the blood beginning to stain your clothes. Their immediate, singular impulse is to help, to pull the arrow out, to save your life. But just as one of them reaches for the shaft, you hold up a hand, stopping them. Wait, you manage to say, your voice tight with pain and the effort of holding back a wave of fear. Before you do anything, before you pull this out, I have to know some things. Your friends stare at you, their brows furrowed in confusion. Know what? One asks. We need to get this out now. You shake your head, your mind latching onto a storm of questions. I need to know who shot this arrow. You insist. Was it a man or a woman? Was this person tall or short? What is the color of their skin? From which family or caste do they come? I need to understand the identity of my attacker. The questions begin to pour out, a torrent of intellectual grasping in the face of raw physical reality. And the village they are from? What is its name? Where is it located? Was this intentional? Was I the target? Or was this a stray shot meant for a deer? Is this an act of war, a personal vendetta, or a random act of violence? Your friends are looking at you as if you have lost your mind. None of that matters right now, they plead, their voices rising with urgency. The poison is in you, but you cannot stop. Your mind has fixated on the details, believing that in understanding the context, you can somehow control the outcome. The bow, you continue, your gaze distant. What kind of wood was it made from? Was it from a yew tree or an ash? And the bowstring? What was its origin? Was it fashioned from animal sinew, from silk, or from hemp? And the arrow itself, look at the feathers on the shaft. Are they from the wing of a vulture, or a heron, or a hawk? The craftsman who fletched this arrow, did he have a particular style? You point a trembling finger closer to the wound. And the arrowhead, who forged it? What kind of metal is it? What specific shape is it? Is it a common design, or something unique to a particular tribe of hunters? Finally, your most compassionate friend grabs you by the shoulders. Listen to me, they say, their voice firm, but full of love. While you are asking these questions, while we stand here debating the lineage of the archer and the metallurgy of the arrowhead, the poison is doing its work. It is spreading through your veins, seeping into your organs. If we wait for the answers to all these questions, you will be dead. The answers will not save you. The only thing that can save you now is to remove the arrow, clean the wound, and apply the antidote. The practical, urgent work of healing is the only thing that matters. This story, told by the Buddha, is the parable of the poisoned arrow. It is not just an ancient tale. It is a mirror held up to our own lives every single day. We, in our complex, pressure-filled world, have all been struck by this arrow. The arrow has a name in the Buddha's language. It is dukkha. This Pali word is often translated as suffering, but its meaning is far more subtle and pervasive. Dukkha is the fundamental unsatisfactoriness of life. It's the low-grade anxiety that hums beneath the surface of a busy day. It's the friction you feel when things don't go your way. It is the sting of a critical comment, the ache of loneliness, the stress of financial worry, the deep grief of loss, the fear of growing old, the terror of death. This is the arrow. It is embedded in the fabric of our existence, and the poison is our reaction to it. Our anger, our fear, our obsessive thinking, our desperate clinging and pushing away. This poison multiplies the pain of the initial wound 1,000 times over. And yet, what do we do when we feel its sting? Just like the person in the story, we get lost in speculative questions. We are hurt in a relationship, and instead of tending to the wound of our heartbreak, we spend months or years dissecting every moment, asking, why? Why did they do that? What did I do wrong? Could I have saved it? We feel the sharp anxiety of a looming deadline at work, and instead of calming our body and focusing on the task, we get lost in, what if I fail? What will my boss think? Will I lose my job? Why am I like this? Why can't I handle pressure? These questions are the endless, fruitless debate on the shore of the river, while the poison spreads. The Buddha's teaching is radically practical. He was not a metaphysician interested in abstract theories. He was a spiritual physician. His sole focus was on diagnosing and treating the human condition. When you are rushed to an emergency room with a life-threatening injury, the doctor's first priority is triage. They don't engage you in a philosophical discussion about the nature of pain or a historical lecture on the invention of the automobile that struck you. They check your vital signs. They stop the bleeding. They set the bone. They address the immediate, life-threatening condition. They deal with the arrow. The Buddha's core teaching, the Four Noble Truths, is the ultimate medical procedure for the wound of the poisoned arrow. First is the truth of suffering, dukkha. This is the diagnosis. It is the doctor looking clearly at the situation and stating the fact: you have been struck by a poisoned arrow. This is not pessimism. It is radical honesty. It is the courageous act of turning toward our pain and acknowledging its presence without flinching. There is anxiety here. There is sorrow here. There is stress here. Second is the truth of the origin of suffering, samudaya. This is identifying the cause of the illness. The doctor says, the problem is not just the wound, but the poison that is spreading. The Buddha identified this poison as tanha, craving, thirst, or clinging. It is our attachment to things being a certain way, our desperate desire for pleasure, and our violent aversion to pain, our clinging to ideas of a permanent, solid self. The pain of the arrow is inevitable, but the suffering from the poison of our reaction is optional. Third is the truth of the cessation of suffering, nirodha. This is the prognosis. This is the doctor giving us the most profound good news imaginable. This condition is treatable. The poison can be neutralized. The wound can heal. A state of complete and lasting health is possible. This is the promise of nibbana, state of liberation, peace, and the end of suffering. It is not a heaven in the sky, but the cessation of the fever of craving within our own heart. Fourth is the truth of the path to the cessation of suffering, magga. This is the prescription, the step-by-step treatment plan. The doctor doesn't just say, get better. They give you the medicine and the physical therapy regimen. This is the Noble Eightfold Patha set of 8 interconnected practices, including right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is the practical toolkit for removing the arrow, neutralizing the poison, and healing the wound completely. The message is a call to shift our priorities. It asks us to bravely turn away from the seductive, endless maze of unanswerable questions and turn toward the direct, undeniable reality of our own present experience. The great cosmic questions about gods, afterlives, and the beginning of time may be fascinating, but they do not soothe the agitated heart. They do not heal the wounds of trauma. They do not bring peace to a troubled mind. The Buddha called these a thicket of views, a wilderness of views, a contortion of views that lead not to peace, but to further entanglement. The real work is here, now, in this body, in this mind, in this moment. When you feel the sting of anger, the work is to feel the heat in your chest, the tension in your jaw, and to breathe with it, to soften around it, not to endlessly justify your righteousness. When you feel the ache of grief, the work is to allow the tears to flow, to feel the emptiness in the room, not to get lost in the what-ifs and if-onlys. This is not a call to ignorance, but a call to a higher wisdom, a wisdom that knows the difference between what is interesting and what is liberating. The great mystery of the cosmos may forever be beyond our grasp, but the mystery of our own mind, the origin of our own suffering, and the path to our own freedom, that is a mystery we have the power to solve. So, The invitation is this: lay down the burden of needing to know everything. Feel the place where the arrow has struck and begin the simple, profound, and life-altering work of healing. Pull out the arrow, tend to the wound. That is the first step and the last step on the path to true peace. 2. The parable of the raft, the art of letting go. Let us now journey with a traveler who could be any one of us. This traveler has been on a long and difficult journey. They have been walking through what the Buddha called the near shore, a perilous and confusing wilderness. This wilderness is not necessarily a physical jungle. For us, it is the landscape of our everyday modern life. The thorns are the sharp words of criticism that snag our confidence. The hidden pits are the sudden bouts of anxiety or depression that can swallow us whole. The predators are the relentless forces of comparison and self-doubt that stalk us in the shadows of our mind. The ground itself is uneven and exhausting to walk upon. It is the terrain of constant striving, of pushing to be more, to do more, to have more. We are tired, we are scratched and bruised by our journey, and we long for a place of safety, a place of rest. Then, through the dense undergrowth of our worries, we come to the edge of a great body of water, a vast, deep river. It is wide, and the current looks strong. This river separates us from the far shore. We can see it in the distance. It looks serene, peaceful, beautiful. The light there seems softer. The trees stand in a state of quiet grace. That shore represents the end of our struggle. It is not a place of lazy inaction, but a place of profound inner stillness and clarity. A place where we can finally be authentic, without the need to perform or protect ourselves. It is the peace our heart has been aching for, but there is a problem. There is no bridge spanning these waters, and there is no ferry waiting to carry us across. We are stranded here, on this dangerous bank, with the promised land in sight, but seemingly unreachable. The river itself is formidable. It is the river of our own conditioned existence. The powerful currents are our ingrained habits of thought and reaction, the tendency to lash out in anger, to shrink in fear, to grasp for pleasure. The dark, murky depths are the waters of ignorance. The fundamental confusion about who we are and what truly leads to happiness. To try and swim this river unaided would be to be swept away instantly. The traveler, feeling a mix of desperation and determination, realizes they cannot stay where they are. They must find a way to cross. They look around and begin to gather what resources they can find on the shore. They gather fallen logs, sturdy reeds, and long, tough vines. This act of gathering is the beginning of our spiritual path. The logs are the foundation of ethical conduct, sila, the commitment to not harm ourselves or others. The reeds are the flexible and persistent practice of mindfulness, sati, the moment-to-moment awareness that we cultivate. The vines are the power of concentration, samadhi, the ability to bind these practices together into a coherent, strong whole. With great effort and developing skill, the traveler lashes these elements together. They work diligently, patiently, learning as they go. Finally, they have constructed a simple but sturdy raft. This raft is the Dharma. It is the sum of the Buddha's teachings and practices. It is the meditation technique you learn, the sutras you study, the community you practice with. It is the framework of the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. It is the vehicle designed for one purpose and one purpose only, to carry you from the shore of suffering to the shore of liberation. Relying on this raft, The traveler pushes off into the powerful current. The journey is not easy. At times, the currents of old habits of worry, of distraction, of judgment threaten to push the raft back to the shore or spin it in circles. The traveler grows tired of paddling with their hands and feet. Doubts arise. Is this even working? Am I making any progress? But they persist, trusting in the design of the raft, trusting in the path. They apply themselves with gentle, steady effort, and slowly, meter by meter, they move across the vast expanse. And then, finally, the front of the raft scrapes against the soft earth of the far shore. The traveler pulls themselves onto the bank, soaked and exhausted, but overcome with a profound sense of relief and peace. They have arrived. The struggle is over. The dangerous wilderness is behind them. They stand on the shore of safety, clarity, and well-being. The air here is clean. The silence is alive. Now, here is the crucial point of the story. The traveler stands up and looks back at the raft that saved their life. A wave of gratitude washes over them. This raft, they think, this raft has been my salvation. It carried me through the treacherous currents. It was my only hope. It would be a terrible waste to abandon it here after all it has done for me. It is so precious. The wise thing to do must be to lift it onto my shoulders and carry it with me as I continue my journey on this new land. The Buddha then turned to his monks and asked, "What do you think? By hoisting the raft onto his back, would this traveler be acting wisely? Would they be doing what is appropriate for the raft?" The answer, so obvious in the story, is a resounding no. The raft was brilliantly designed and absolutely essential for crossing the river, but its purpose has been fulfilled on dry land. The raft is no longer a tool of liberation. It has become a cumbersome, heavy, pointless burden. The wise course of action, the Buddha explained, would be to push the raft back into the water, or to beach it on the shore, and to walk on, unencumbered, with a heart full of gratitude, but with hands and shoulders free. In the same way, the Buddha said, I have taught the Dhamma comparable to a raft. It is for the purpose of crossing over, not for the purpose of grasping and holding on to. This teaching is a radical challenge to our mind's most fundamental habit, the habit of clinging. We so easily mistake the tool for the goal, the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself. How does this show up in our own lives? We might learn a specific meditation technique, perhaps mindfulness of breathing. It helps us immensely, calming our anxiety, but then our mind becomes rigid. We develop raft, pride. We think this is the only way to meditate. People who practice other techniques are doing it wrong. We defend our raft instead of enjoying the shore we have landed on. We are now carrying the raft. Or we fall in love with the concepts, the beautiful philosophy of the teachings. We learn the Pali words anicca, dukkha, anatta. We can explain them eloquently at dinner parties. We feel a sense of intellectual mastery, but we use these concepts as a shield, as a way to analyze and label our experience from a safe distance, rather than as tools to directly see the truth in our own hearts. We are polishing our raft, admiring its construction, instead of walking freely on the land. This pattern extends far beyond explicitly spiritual practice. It touches every corner of our lives. Think of a relationship from your past. Perhaps it was a raft that got you through a period of deep loneliness or insecurity. It was essential for your survival at that time. But the relationship ended. the river was crossed. If you are still spending your days replaying old conversations, analyzing what went wrong, or checking their social media, you are carrying that heavy, waterlogged raft on your back. It is preventing you from walking freely on the new shore of your present life. The wise action is to acknowledge its importance with gratitude. Thank you for what you gave me, and then let it go. Think of a job or a career. It may have been a wonderful raft for years, providing you with security, identity, and purpose. But you have changed. The landscape has changed. Now, that same job feels like a cage, a source of profound stress and meaninglessness, yet you cling to it. Why? Because of the identity. I am a doctor. I am a teacher. I am a vice president. You are carrying the heavy raft of your professional title, terrified of who you would be without it. Letting go is not failure. It is recognizing that you have reached a new shore, and the old vehicle is no longer needed for the next part of the journey. Our beliefs, our opinions, our stories about ourselves, these are all rafts. We tell ourselves, I am an anxious person. I am not good at relationships. I am a victim. For a time, that story might have even served as a raft, helping you make sense of your pain. But you arrive on a shore of new possibility, of healing, and yet you keep carrying the raft of that old, limiting identity. You introduce yourself with it. You use it to navigate this new land, where it is nothing but a burden. The practice of letting go is not one of carelessness. It is not an act of nihilism or disrespect for the past. It is an act of profound wisdom and self-compassion. It requires us to be mindful and honest, to continually ask ourselves this simple question: is this helping me now? Or am I just carrying it out of habit, out of fear? Take a moment, right now, to feel the weight on your own shoulders. What are the rafts you are carrying? An old grudge, a past failure, a cherished success you can't stop talking about, a specific way of seeing the world that has grown too small for your heart. The invitation of this parable is to gently, kindly set them down, one by one. You don't have to smash the raft or burn it. You simply recognize its purpose has been served. You thank it for carrying you so faithfully, and you walk on, lighter, freer, with your eyes open to the new landscape before you. The goal was never to collect and maintain a fleet of impressive rafts. The goal was always just to reach the other shore. 3. Kisa Gautami and the mustard seed, the wisdom of grief. In our exploration of the human mind, we must inevitably arrive at the great territory of love and its shadow, the immense landscape of grief. There is no story from the ancient world that speaks to this experience with more profound and tender wisdom than that of a woman named Kisa Gautami. To understand her story, we must first understand her world. Kisa Gautami was a woman who lived her life on uncertain ground. Born into a poor family, she had married into a household of great wealth. But this fortune was not her own, and she was treated as an outsider, constantly reminded of her humble origins. She lived with a quiet, gnawing insecurity, a feeling of being less than. Her sense of self-worth was fragile, like a delicate vessel. Then, she gave birth to a son, and in an instant, her entire world was remade. This tiny, perfect child was not just a source of love, he was her salvation. In his eyes, she saw her own value reflected back. In his existence, she found her undeniable place in the family and in the world. He was her identity, her purpose, her shield against all the slights and insecurities she had endured. The love she felt for him was a brilliant, blazing sun that banished every shadow. warmed every cold corner of her heart, and filled her fragile vessel to the brim. Her life finally had a center, and that center was her beloved boy. One day, the sun of her world went out. Her son, who had only just learned to walk, fell sick. The sickness was swift and cruel, and within days, he died in her arms. The shock of it was absolute. It was not just an event, it was the collapse of reality itself. Her mind, in a desperate act of self-preservation, simply refused to accept it. To her, the cold, still body in her arms was not dead. It was merely asleep or deeply ill. The silence in his room was not the silence of absence, but the quiet of sickness, waiting for a cure. Clutching the body of her child, she ran from her home and into the streets. Her hair was undone, her clothes were disheveled, and her eyes were wide with a frantic, single-minded purpose. She went from door to door, from neighbor to stranger, her voice a desperate cry. "Medicine, please, do you have medicine for my son? He is only sick. Give me the medicine that will make him well." The reactions of those she met were a catalogue of how the world often meets unbearable pain. Some, seeing her state, turned away in awkward pity, their discomfort a wall she could not penetrate. Others, more cruel, mocked her. "The woman has lost her senses," they whispered. "Can she not see the child is dead? There is no medicine for that." Their words were stones, adding to the bruises on her heart. Still others offered empty platitudes, useless advice that did nothing to touch the core of her agony. She was utterly alone, adrift in a sea of her own personal, unspeakable sorrow. Her frantic search led her to a wise old man who saw past the madness in her eyes and perceived the crushing weight of the love that caused it. He felt a deep and stirring compassion. He knew he could not give her the medicine she was asking for, but he could point her toward the only physician who could truly help. "Sister," he said, his voice gentle, "I have no cure for your boy, but I know the one who does. Go and find the Blessed One, the Buddha. He is the great physician. He will know what to do." A spark of frantic hope ignited in her heart. The Buddha! She ran, stumbling through the streets, to the grove where he was teaching. She burst through the crowd of assembled monks, her focus only on the calm, seated figure. She laid the body of her son at the Buddha's feet and sobbed, "O Blessed One, they say you have the cure for all ills. Please, give me the medicine that will restore my child." The Buddha looked at Kisa Gotami. He did not see a hysterical woman. He saw a being drowning. He saw the depth of her love and the equal depth of her attachment. And he knew that a simple statement of fact, "Your son is dead," would be a violence to her mind. It would be a truth she could not possibly absorb. So, with infinite skill and compassion, he met her in her world. He did not dismiss her quest. He refined it. "You have done well to come to me," he said, his voice an anchor of calm in her storm. "There is indeed a medicine that can help, but to make it, I require a special ingredient." "Anything," she cried. "I will bring you anything. Go into the city," the Buddha instructed, "and bring me a small handful of mustard seeds." Kisa Gotami's heart soared. Mustard seeds, such a common thing. Hope surged through her. "I will fetch them at once. There is one condition," the Buddha added, his voice gentle but firm. "The mustard seeds must come from a house where no one has ever died. They must be from a family that has never known loss, bereavement, or the pain of saying goodbye to a loved one." The condition seemed strange, but in her desperate state, it was a minor detail. Surely, in a great city, there must be one lucky house, one family untouched by sorrow, filled with renewed purpose. She took her son back into her arms and began her quest for the cure. She went to the first house she saw, a grand mansion with ornate gates. A woman dressed in fine silks answered the door. "The Blessed One has sent me," Kisa Gautami explained, her words rushing out. "I need a handful of mustard seeds for a medicine to cure my son, but they must come from a house where death has never entered." The woman's face softened with a deep sadness. "Oh, poor sister," she said. "The mustard seeds you can have. We have them in abundance. But this house is not the one you seek. The living here are few, but the dead are many. I lost my beloved husband in this house just last year." Slightly discouraged, Kisa Gautami went to the next house, and the next. At each door, the story was different, yet the same. At a merchant's house, a man told her, "You can have the seeds, but my father died in that room upstairs." At a craftsman's hut, a woman said, "Take what you need, but I still mourn for my sister who was taken by fever." She went to the homes of the rich and the poor, the old and the young. Everywhere, the answer echoed, "We have seeds, but this is a house of sorrow. We have seeds, but my mother is gone. We have seeds, but we buried a child long ago." As the hours passed and the sun began its descent, the frantic energy in Kisa Gautami's heart began to subside, replaced by a profound, dawning stillness. She was no longer just a mother seeking a cure. She had become a listener, a witness. In each home, she had not just asked for seeds. She had received a story of love and loss. Her personal, sharp, isolating grief was beginning to dissolve into a vast, shared river of human sorrow. She was beginning to see that her pain was not a punishment, not a unique curse. It was the universal condition of a world where all things that arise must also pass away. As dusk settled over the city, she sat by the roadside, her dead son still in her lap. She watched the lamps being lit in the houses, one by one, flickering to life. And then, later in the night, she watched as they were extinguished, one by one. In the simple act of the lamps flaring up and dying out, she saw the truth of all lives. They arise, they shine for a while, and then they are extinguished. She looked down at the face of her child and saw him, for the first time, not just as her son, but as a being subject to this universal law, anicca, impermanence. In that moment of profound insight, her heart did not harden, it broke open. The frantic, grasping grief transformed into a vast, tender compassion for herself, for her son, for the woman in the mansion, for the man in the hut, for every being caught in this cycle of birth and death. She was not alone. Her broken heart was now connected to all broken hearts. Gently, she carried her son's body to the charnel ground for its final rites. Then, empty-handed and clear-minded, she returned to the Buddha. He saw her approaching, and his gaze was soft. "Sister," he asked, "have you brought the mustard seeds?" "No, Blessed One," she said, her voice quiet and steady. "The task is done. I have learned the lesson. The people of the city told me, the living are few, but the dead are many." The Buddha knew then that she had received the true medicine. It was not a potion to reverse death. It was the wisdom that heals the suffering caused by clinging to that which is impermanent. He had healed the poison of her attachment. This story speaks directly to us now, when we are struck by loss, the death of a loved one, the end of a cherished relationship, the loss of a dream, the grief for a life we thought we would have. Our first instinct is to feel utterly alone. We think, why me? The pain feels unique, a private catastrophe. The genius of the Buddha's method was to send Kisa Gautami on a journey that forced her to see her connection to everyone else. The cure for the isolation of grief is the discovery of our shared humanity. Your pain is not a sign that you are broken. It is a testament to the fact that you have loved. The practice is not to try and erase the grief or to get over it. It is to hold it with the same boundless, compassionate awareness that Kisa Gotami discovered. It is to know that your aching heart connects you to every parent, every child, every friend, every lover who has ever lived and lost. In that shared truth, there is no cure for the loss, but there is a profound healing for the soul. It is the medicine that allows us to walk on, with a heart made not weaker, but wiser and more compassionate by the beautiful, painful, and universal price of love. 4. Taming the wild elephant, the practice of mindfulness. Let us now turn our attention from the landscapes of grief and letting go to the very instrument with which we perceive them, the human mind itself. In the ancient teachings of the Buddha, there is no more powerful or fitting metaphor for the untrained mind than that of a wild elephant. Imagine this creature, captured moments ago from the vast, untamed freedom of the jungle. It is a terrifying spectacle of pure, raw, primordial energy. Its eyes are wide with panic and rage. Its powerful muscles strain against the thick ropes that bind it, and the ground trembles with its fury. With a deafening trumpet of defiance, it thrashes and charges, attempting to crush anything and everything in its path. It is a force of chaos, driven by instinct, fear, and aggression. This wild elephant, the Buddha taught, lives within each of us. This is our mind, in its natural, untrained state. Think about it. Left to its own devices, where does your mind go? Like the elephant crashing through the familiar jungle of its past, our mind endlessly revisits old territories. It gets entangled in the thick vines of past regrets, replaying arguments from years ago, feeling the fresh sting of old embarrassments. It trips over the thorny roots of resentment, nursing ancient grudges that continue to poison the present moment. Or, like the elephant stampeding in panic towards an unknown threat, our mind hurtles into the future. It creates elaborate, terrifying scenarios, phantom predators of what if. It imagines failing the presentation, getting a terrible diagnosis, or being abandoned by a loved one. It lives in a state of constant, low-grade preparation for disasters that have not happened and likely never will. This frantic, forward-rushing energy is what we call anxiety. And when confronted with a real or perceived threat in the present moment, the mind reacts with the elephant's brute force. Another driver cuts you off in traffic, and a surge of incandescent rage takes over. The elephant charges. You receive a piece of critical feedback at work, and your mind immediately rears up in defensiveness, trumpeting justifications, and blame. The elephant protects its territory. All the while, we feel like a helpless rider, being dragged along on this chaotic journey, powerless to control the direction or the speed, exhausted by the ceaseless, violent motion. So, the great question becomes, how do you tame a wild elephant? A wise trainer knows that cruelty is not the answer. To beat the elephant into submission would only create a broken, fearful, and resentful creature. The true art of taming is a process of patient, gentle, and unwavering discipline. The first step is to give the elephant a single point of focus. The trainer leads the massive creature to a thick, sturdy post, one that has been driven deep into the earth. The elephant is then tied to this post with a strong rope. At first, this is unbearable for the elephant. It renews its struggle, pulling and straining against the rope, raging at its confinement. It will do this for hours, even days, until finally, utterly exhausted, it realizes its struggle is futile. the post will not yield. And so, it begins to calm down. It learns to simply stand near the post. This post, in the Buddhist tradition, is the practice of concentration, samatha. For us, this sturdy, unshakable post is the breath, the simple, physical sensation of the breath entering and leaving the body. It is the perfect anchor because it is always with us. It is always happening in the present moment, and it is fundamentally neutral. The practice of anapanasati, or mindfulness of breathing, is the act of gently tying the wild elephant of the mind to this post. When you first sit down to meditate, you will experience the elephant's initial rage. Your mind will pull violently in every direction. I forgot to add milk to the grocery list. What was that song I heard yesterday? My back itches. I'm so bored. This is a waste of time. These thoughts are the elephant pulling on the rope. Your task as the trainer is not to yell at the elephant or yank the rope in frustration. This is a crucial point. If you meet your distraction with anger, I'm so bad at this. My mind will never be quiet. You are simply teaching the elephant to be more agitated and fearful. The art is in the gentleness of the return. You notice the mind has wandered. You might even label it softly, planning, worrying, remembering, and then, with the kindness you would show a lost puppy, you gently guide your awareness back to the post, back to the simple, raw sensation of the air passing your nostrils, the feeling of your chest or belly rising and falling, in and out. The mind will wander away again in seconds, and you will gently guide it back. You may have to do this 100 times, 1,000 times in a single sitting, but it is not 100 failures. It is 100 acts of patient, gentle training. Each return strengthens the post and calms the elephant. Once the elephant has learned to stand calmly by the post, the second phase of training begins. The trainer can now approach. They can begin to build a relationship with the elephant. They might offer it a piece of fruit, touch its flank with a gentle hand, or speak to it in a soothing voice. The elephant learns that the trainer is not a threat, but a source of kindness. This is the beginning of insight, or vipassana. Now that our mind has developed some stability through concentration, we can stop just holding it in place and start to understand it. We can observe it with a friendly curiosity. We are no longer just trying to stop the elephant from running away. We are getting to know its nature. Thoughts, feelings, and sensations will still arise. But now, instead of being immediately swept away by them, we can watch them. An old sadness may bubble up. Instead of suppressing it or getting lost in its story, we can just observe it as a feeling in the body, a tightness in the chest, a weight in the stomach. And as we watch, we begin to see some remarkable things. We see that the feeling of sadness arises, it stays for a while, and then, on its own, it passes away. We didn't have to do anything. This is a direct, visceral insight into anicca, impermanence. We learn in our bones that our emotional states are not solid, permanent fixtures of who we are. They are like weather patterns, passing through the vast sky of our awareness. We also see the subtle nature of dukkha, that background hum of unsatisfactoriness. We watch how the mind grasps at a pleasant thought, trying to hold on to it, and how that very grasping creates a subtle tension. We see how the mind pushes away an unpleasant sensation, and how that pushing creates even more discomfort. We see the mind's inherent restlessness, its constant state of seeking and avoiding. Most profoundly, as we watch thoughts and feelings arise and pass away all by themselves, a radical question emerges. Who is doing this? A thought appears, but did I think it? An emotion arises, but is it me? We begin to see that these mental events are impersonal processes, arising due to causes and conditions, just like the weather. This insight into anatta, or no self, is deeply liberating. We realize we are not the chaotic, thrashing elephant. We are the calm, spacious awareness that is watching it. This realization unties the deepest knots of our suffering. Finally, the fully tamed elephant can be untied from the post. It is now calm, centered, and responsive. Its wild, destructive energy has not been eliminated. It has been transformed into a powerful, focused, and benevolent force. This tamed elephant can now perform incredible tasks. It can build bridges, clear paths, and carry heavy loads with precision and grace. It has become a friend, an ally. This is the ultimate fruit of mindfulness practice. A tamed mind is not a weak or empty mind. It is an incredibly clear, resilient, and powerful one. The immense energy you once wasted on anxious loops and angry ruminations is now liberated. It becomes available for creativity, for deep listening, for compassionate action, for wise decision-making. You can respond to life's difficulties not with blind, animalistic reactivity, but with clarity, courage, and grace. The mind ceases to be your tyrannical master and becomes your most faithful servant and wisest friend. So, when you next sit down and feel the wild elephant of your mind thrashing and pulling, do not be discouraged. Do not despair. Simply remember your tools. Remember the unwavering, sturdy post of the breath. And remember the gentle, compassionate hand of your own awareness. This is the path. It is a slow, patient, and deeply kind process of transformation. It is the noble work of taming the most powerful force in your life and turning it into your greatest source of freedom and peace. 5. The parable of the lute. Finding the middle way. Having learned to observe our own minds, we begin to see the powerful currents that pull us. But how do we navigate these currents? How much effort should we apply? If we are to tame the elephant, what is the right way to hold the rope? The answer lies in one of the Buddha's most elegant and practical teachings, illuminated by the story of a monk named Sona. Sona's life was a study in extremes. He was born into a world that most of us can only imagine. His family was so fabulously wealthy, his upbringing so sheltered and delicate, that it was said soft, downy hair grew on the soles of his feet because they had never touched the bare, rough earth. His life was a constant, curated stream of pleasure, the softest silks, the most exotic foods, endless entertainment, and the complete absence of any physical hardship. He lived at one end of the human spectrum, the path of total sensual indulgence. The string of his life was utterly slack, and in this slackness, there was no real music. There was only a hollow boredom, a listless dissatisfaction, a constant, nagging feeling that despite having everything, he had nothing of substance. It was a life without meaning, producing only the dull thud of one fleeting pleasure, followed by another. Disgusted by the emptiness of this existence, Sona did what many people of intense character do. He swung the pendulum to the absolute opposite extreme. He renounced his life of luxury and became a monk, dedicating himself to the path of liberation with a ferocious, almost violent intensity. He embraced the path of extreme asceticism. He believed that the body was an enemy, a prison of flesh to be broken. He believed that desire was a fire to be extinguished, not with wisdom, but with starvation. He began walking meditation, and he walked not for hours, but for days, with a relentless, punishing focus. He walked until the soft soles of his feet, once a symbol of his privilege, were cracked, blistered, and bleeding, leaving crimson footprints on the monastery grounds. He practiced fasting to the point of emaciation, his body withering away. He deprived himself of sleep, pushing his mind to the edge of delirium, believing that exhaustion was a sign of progress. He was stretching the string of his life as tightly as it could possibly go, convinced that enlightenment would come with the screeching sound of maximum effort, the glorious snap of a mind and body pushed beyond all conceivable limits. This was the mentality of war, of conquest, of self-hatred disguised as spiritual discipline. Yet, for all his striving, for all his heroic, agonizing effort, peace did not come. Enlightenment remained a distant shore. Instead, he found only a deeper kind of suffering. His body was in constant pain. His mind, far from being clear, was agitated, restless, and filled with frustration. He was utterly exhausted. A violin string stretched so taut that it produced only a sharp, grating, unbearable screech. In the depths of his despair, a thought arose, a tempting whisper. I have given up the world of ultimate pleasure, and it brought me no peace. Now I have embraced the world of ultimate pain, and it too has brought me no peace. I have failed. This path is not for me. Perhaps I should give up this struggle, return to the comfort of my family's home, and simply live as a layman, enjoying my wealth and doing good deeds from a distance. He was on the verge of quitting, convinced that both extremes had proven fruitless. The Buddha, from his own place of deep meditation, perceived Sona's crisis. He knew this was a critical turning point. With his great compassion and skill, he appeared before the struggling monk. He did not offer a lecture or a rebuke. He met Sona in the field of his own experience. Sona, the Buddha asked, his voice calm and kind. Tell me, in your life before you became a monk, were you not known for being skilled in playing the lute? The question was unexpected. Sona, taken aback, replied, Yes, Blessed One, that is true. I was. Then tell me, Sona, the Buddha continued, when the strings of your lute were tuned too tightly, stretched to their breaking point, was the lute well tuned and pleasant to play? Did it produce beautiful, harmonious music? Sona thought back to his old life, to the feeling of the instrument in his hands. No, Blessed One, he said. When the strings were too tight, the sound was sharp, shrill, and jarring. It was an ugly sound, and the string was always in danger of snapping. And Sona, the Buddha asked, when the strings were tuned too loosely, so slack they could barely hold their position, was the lute then pleasant to play? Did it produce beautiful music? No, Blessed One, Sona replied, the first glimmer of understanding dawning in his mind. When the strings were too loose, there was no music at all. Striking the string produced only a dull, lifeless thud. But when, Sona, the Buddha said, his voice carrying the heart of the teaching, when the strings of your lute were neither too tight nor too loose, but were tuned to a perfect, even pitch, when there was a harmony between tension and relaxation, was the lute then in a state to produce beautiful, resonant, and moving music? A wave of insight washed over Sona. Yes, Blessed One, he said, his voice full of a new clarity. It was then that the music was beautiful. It was then that the instrument was in perfect harmony. In the very same way, Sona, the Buddha concluded, effort that is stretched too tightly leads to restlessness, agitation, and burnout. And effort that is too slack leads to laziness, apathy, and stagnation. Therefore, Sona, give up these two extremes. Resolve to find the balance in your energy. Tune the faculties of your mind, your faith, your energy, your mindfulness, your concentration, your wisdom to an even pitch. Take that harmony as your aim. This teaching is the heart of what is known as the middle way. It is crucial to understand that the middle way is not a weak compromise. It is not a path of mediocrity. It is a razor's edge of exquisite balance, a dynamic path of wise effort. We are all sona. We are constantly navigating these extremes in our modern lives. Think of your physical health. The slack string is the path of neglect, eating whatever is easy, avoiding all exercise, ignoring the body's needs. This leads to lethargy, illness, and a low quality of life. The tight string is the path of obsession, extreme diets, punishing workout schedules, agonizing over every calorie, hating your body for its imperfections. This leads to injury, anxiety, and burnout. The middle way is treating your body as a respected friend. It is nourishing it with good food, but also enjoying a piece of cake without guilt. It is exercising consistently, but also listening to its need for rest. It is a path of sustainable well-being, not frantic perfectionism. Think of your work and ambition. The slack string is apathy and procrastination. It is doing the bare minimum, avoiding all challenges, and complaining about your job. This leads to stagnation and a deep sense of meaninglessness. The tight string is the anthem of modern hustle culture. Working, punishing hours, sacrificing sleep, family, and friendships on the altar of success, living in a constant state of stress. This is the path to a snapped stringer breakdown, a health crisis. The middle way is working with diligence and focus when you are at work, and then leaving it behind. It's setting clear boundaries to protect your time for rest, for connection, for play. It is understanding that the best, most creative work comes not from a place of desperation, but from a place of health and balance. This principle of tuning applies to everything. In our spiritual practice, in our relationships, in our pursuit of knowledge. Are you too passive, or are you trying too hard? Are you too rigid, or are you too careless? The invitation of this parable is to become your own lute tuner, to pay attention, with gentle honesty, to the quality of the music your life is making. When you feel the jarring screech of anxiety and stress, the string is likely too tight. Ease off, take a breath, rest. When you feel the dull thud of boredom and meaninglessness, the string is likely too slack. Engage, apply some gentle effort, find a challenge. Peace is not found at the finish line of a brutal war with yourself, and it is not found in the apathy of giving up. It is found in the ongoing moment-to-moment practice of finding that beautiful, resonant harmony. It is the art of applying just enough tension to make music. It is the wisdom of the middle way. 6. The parable of the burning house, the urgency of practice. We have spoken of taming the mind and finding the middle way, but this raises a crucial question. Why? Why should we undertake this work? What is the rush? Can't we just continue as we are, and perhaps begin this journey later, when we have more time? There is a powerful story in the Buddhist tradition that addresses this question with the force of a thunderclap. It is a story that reveals the true nature of our situation and the profound urgency of the path. This is the parable of the burning house. Imagine a vast and sprawling mansion. It is ancient, and in its time, it was magnificent. It has hundreds of rooms, corridors, and hidden chambers. It represents samsara, the endless cycle of worldly existence we inhabit. This house is our life, our world, but this house, for all its seeming grandeur, is in a state of severe decay. Its foundations are weak. Its great wooden pillars are being eaten from within by termites. The plaster on the walls is crumbling, and the roof is rotting. Hidden in its dark corners are nests of venomous snakes and scorpions. The house has many rooms, but only one Gatia single, narrow point of exit. Living within this vast, decaying mansion are a number of children. 5, 10, perhaps 20 of them. These children are the sons of the wealthy man who owns the house. And these children represent all of us. What are they doing in this crumbling, dangerous structure? They are playing. They are completely absorbed in their games. Some are playing with toy soldiers, imagining great battles. Some are chasing each other through the dusty halls. Others are engrossed with dolls and trinkets. They are utterly oblivious to the house's precarious state. The crumbling walls and hidden dangers do not register. Their attention is captured by their toys. Think of our own lives. What are our games? The game of accumulating wealth, the game of climbing the corporate ladder, the game of seeking social status and collecting likes online, the game of replaying old grievances in our minds, the game of distracting ourselves with an endless stream of digital entertainment. We are these children, completely engrossed in our trivial pursuits, unaware that the very structure of our existence is inherently unstable and fraught with hidden dangers. The father of the children, the wealthy man, is outside the house. He represents the clear-seeing wisdom of a Buddha, the compassionate aspect of awareness that perceives the true nature of reality. He knows the house is a death trap. He knows its dangers. And then, the unthinkable happens. The house catches fire. It doesn't start in one small corner. The fire erupts from all 4 sides at once, the flames greedily consuming the old, dry wood. Thick, black smoke begins to fill the corridors. The crackling sound of the inferno grows louder, and a terrifying heat begins to radiate through the walls. The one and only gate of escape is now wreathed in flames. The father is struck with terror, not for himself, but for his beloved children inside. His first, instinctual thought is to rush in and carry them out. But the fire at the gate is too intense. He cannot enter. He must call to them. So he stands at the burning gateway and shouts, his voice filled with panic and love. "Children, get out! The house is on fire. The whole mansion is burning down around you. If you stay in there playing your games, you will be consumed by the flames. You will perish. Come out, now." He tells them the plain, unvarnished, terrifying truth. And what do the children do? They hear his voice, but they do not heed his warning. Perhaps they glance up from their games for a moment, but they don't see the smoke. They don't feel the heat. The fire has not yet reached their particular room. The father's frantic cries are just another background noise, an unwelcome interruption to their play. They are too absorbed. They do not believe the danger is real, or that it applies to them in this moment. This is a profound and unsettling mirror to our own condition. The Buddha and other great teachers have been shouting the truth for millennia. Your world is impermanent. Your life is fleeting. Your ordinary state of mind is one of suffering. You must find the way out. And we hear the words. Perhaps we even nod in intellectual agreement. But do we act? Or do we say, "That's very interesting, but I have a deadline to meet," or "I'll get to my spiritual life after I've secured my retirement"? We do not believe the house is truly on fire right now. The father, seeing that his direct warnings have failed, is overcome with a new kind of anxiety. I must save them, he thinks, but they are ignorant and attached to their toys. The truth is not enough. And then, a brilliant idea, born of wisdom and deep compassion, arises in his mind. He knows his children. He knows what they love, what will capture their imagination. He must use skillful means, upaya. He must speak their language. He calls out to them again. But this time, his tone is different. It is not a warning, it is a promise. Children, come outside. Quickly. I have something wonderful for you. Waiting right here. I have brought you new toys. More amazing than any you have ever seen. I have beautiful carts for you to play with. There are carts drawn by swift goats, and carts drawn by graceful deer, and even magnificent carts drawn by powerful oxen. They are rare and splendid, and they are waiting for you right outside the gate. If you come out now, you can have your choice of any of them. This time, the children listen. Carts, drawn by goats, deer, and oxen, such wonderful things they had always wanted. The promise of a new, delightful prize is enough to break the spell of their old, boring games. They forget their toy soldiers and trinkets. A new desire has been kindled. A desire for something better, pushing and shoving each other. They race through the smoky corridors and scramble out of the single, burning gate, leaving the inferno behind them just as the roof collapses in a shower of sparks and embers. They are safe. Once outside, standing on the cool, open ground, they look to their father. Father, where are the goat carts, the deer carts, and the ox carts that you promised us? And the father, his heart overflowing with joy at their safety, does not give them 3 different kinds of lesser carts. Instead, he presents each of them with something far grander than anything he had described. Far beyond what they could have imagined. He gives each child the very same gift, a single, great white ox cart. This cart is magnificent. It is huge and spacious, adorned with gold and silver and shimmering jewels. It is covered with a soft canopy and hung with tinkling bells. The great white ox that pulls it is strong and pure, and it moves with incredible speed and smoothness. It is the most splendid vehicle imaginable. The parable asks, did the father lie to his children? In a literal sense, yes, but his lie was not a deception. It was an act of supreme love. It was a skillful means to save them from certain death. And the reward he gave them was not less than what he promised, but infinitely greater. This house is our life. Its crumbling walls are the truth of anicca, impermanence. The hidden scorpions and snakes are the latent defilements of our mind greed, hatred, and delusion that can strike at any moment. The fire is not some hypothetical future event. The house is on fire right now. The low-grade stress of modern life, the constant anxiety, the relentless passage of time, the friction in our relationships, the slow decay of our own bodies, this is the smoke. We are living in a burning house, but we are too busy playing with our toys to notice. The teachings of the Buddha are the Father's compassionate call. Sometimes, the teachings offer us the direct, stark truth, but often they appeal to us with the promise of toys, the promise of less anxiety, the promise of better focus at work, the promise of being a calmer parent, the promise of happiness. There is nothing wrong with being drawn to the path for these reasons. They are the goat carts and deer carts that motivate us to finally run out of the burning gate. They are the skillful means that save us. But the ultimate gift of the path, the great white ox cart, is the profound, unshakable peace of nibbana, freedom so vast, so complete, that it makes the initial toy we were seeking seem insignificant. We may come to meditation seeking to reduce our stress, but we discover a freedom that transcends the very concepts of stress and calm. This parable is a call to awaken to a sense of gentle urgency. In the Buddhist tradition, this feeling is called savega. It is not panic. It is the clear, sober recognition of the danger of our situation, which motivates us to diligently practice the path. It's the feeling of a person who finally smells the smoke and realizes there is no time to waste. So, the invitation is to ask yourself, with gentle honesty, can you smell the smoke in your own life? Can you feel the faint heat of the flames? What toys are keeping you so engrossed while the pillars of your existence are slowly crumbling? The compassionate call is always there. The magnificent cart is waiting. We don't have to wait until the flames are licking at our feet. We can choose to run out of the gate right now. 7. The man who carried the empty boat. Letting go of anger. Having acknowledged the urgency of our situation, the burning house of our existence, we are motivated to find our way out. But the path out is often blocked by powerful obstacles of our own making. One of the most formidable of these is the fire of anger. Anger can feel so justified, so powerful, so real. It consumes our peace and poisons our relationships. How do we work with such a potent force? An old and profound story, passed down through generations of practitioners, offers us a key. Let us imagine a man, perhaps a scholar or a woodsman, who decides to cross a wide, mist-shrouded river at dawn. He is alone in his small boat. The world is utterly still. The surface of the water is like glass, reflecting the soft, grey light of the pre-dawn sky. The only sound is the gentle, rhythmic splash of his single oar dipping into the water. In this solitude, there is a deep and profound peace. His mind is as calm and clear as the river itself. This is a moment of grace, a state of being we all yearn for. He is simply moving, breathing, being. Then, out of the thick, white mist, it happens. A sudden, violent jolt throws him off balance. A loud crack of wood echoes across the silent water. Another boat has collided with his, striking it with considerable force. Cold river water splashes over the side, soaking him. His tranquil journey is shattered. His first reaction is a flash of fear. His second, which follows in a nanosecond, is a surge of pure, hot, righteous anger. His peace has been violated. His boat, his property, has been damaged. His body is drenched and cold. Instantly, his mind begins to construct a story, a narrative of blame. Who is this fool? He thinks, his hands clenching the oar into a weapon. What kind of idiot pilots a boat so recklessly, especially in this mist? They have no respect, no consideration. The physical sensations of his rage are overwhelming. A hot flush creeps up his neck and burns in his cheeks. His jaw is tight, his teeth are grinding, his heart is pounding in his chest. Not with fear anymore, but with the adrenaline of confrontation. All the peace he felt just moments before is gone, replaced by a turbulent inner storm. He stands up in his rocking boat, his body trembling with fury, and he searches the mist for the object of his rage. He fills his lungs, ready to unleash a torrent of blame, a volley of abuse that will put this careless fool firmly in his place. He opens his mouth to shout, but just as the first angry word is about to escape his lips, the mist shifts. A gentle breeze parts the white curtain, and he sees the other boat clearly for the first time. And in that moment, his entire world turns upside down. The other boat is empty. There is no one in it. No reckless pilot, no inconsiderate fool, no malicious enemy. It is just an empty boat that has evidently broken loose from its mooring upstream and has been carried downriver by the silent, indifferent current. The man stands there, his mouth agape, his lungs full of useless, angry air. A profound confusion washes over him. The anger is still there, a fully formed, potent energy coursing through his veins. But it has no target. The hook upon which he was about to hang all his rage has vanished. Who does he yell at now? The boat? The river? The frayed rope on the shore that finally gave way? The absurdity of his own position strikes him with the force of a second collision. To scream at an empty boat is the act of a madman. Slowly, the anger begins to deflate. Like a punctured balloon, the heat in his face subsides. His fists unclench. The violent storm in his mind quiets, leaving behind not peace, but a sense of deep foolishness and a profound, life-altering insight. He realized in that moment that the anger was never in the other boat. The anger was not caused by an external person. The anger was generated entirely within himself. The other boat was just an event. His mind supplied the story, the blame, and the outrage. The presence of a person in that boat would have served only as a convenient justification for a rage that was already his own. This is the empty boat principle. The collision was real, the damage was real, but the suffering, the personal offense, the drama that was his own creation. He learned that most of our anger is not a response to an event, but a response to our interpretation of an event. We don't get angry at what happens. We get angry at the story we tell ourselves about what happens. After this encounter, the man was transformed. He carried the lesson of the empty boat with him everywhere. He understood that every person who irritated him, who offended him, who made him angry, was just another empty boat. Their actions, their words, were like a vessel adrift on the currents of their own causes and conditions, their own past, their own pain, their own ignorance. They might not even be aware of the collision. Let us bring this principle into our own lives. Think of the last time you felt a flash of road rage. Another car cuts you off abruptly. Your immediate reaction is personal. That jerk, he did that to me. Your mind creates a villain, a malicious actor. But what if you saw that car as an empty boat? Perhaps the driver is a terrified parent rushing their sick child to the hospital. Perhaps they are lost and confused. Perhaps they just made a simple, human mistake. The event itself, a metal box moving into a spacious neutral. The story you tell about the malicious driver is what causes the suffering. You are shouting at a person you have completely invented. Consider a critical email from a colleague or a boss. The words on the screen are blunt, maybe even seem harsh. Your mind immediately leaps to a story of personal attack. She's trying to make me look bad. He thinks I'm incompetent. And with that story comes a cascade of defensiveness, anxiety, and resentment. But what if that email is an empty boat? What if the sender was in a hurry, typing on their phone between meetings? What if that is simply their communication style, with no ill will behind it at all? By seeing the emptiness of the boat, you don't have to take the hit personally. You can respond to the content of the email with clarity, rather than reacting to the phantom attack you've perceived. This applies most powerfully in our closest relationships. Your partner, your child, your parent says something that stings. It feels deeply personal. How could they say that to me? But what if their words are an empty boat, sent adrift by the currents of their own stressful day, their own physical discomfort, their own unhealed wounds from their past? Their comment might have very little to do with you, and everything to do with their own inner world. Seeing this doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it changes your starting point. Instead of meeting their anger with your own, you can meet their empty, drifting boat with curiosity and compassion. It sounds like you're in a lot of pain right now. This response can transform a conflict into a moment of connection. The practice, then, is to become an empty boat spotter. It is to create a small pause, a moment of mindfulness between the event and your reaction. In that precious space, you can ask the question, is there really a person in that boat? A malicious pilot steering it directly at me? Or is this an empty vessel, adrift on the currents of life? 9 times out of 10, you will find the boat is empty. This realization is the key that unlocks the prison of anger. It disarms the explosive power of personal offense. It allows you to address situations that need addressing, but from a place of calm clarity, not blinding rage. You can still point out the damage to your boat, but you are no longer at war with the river. You have a choice. You can spend your life standing in your small boat, screaming at every empty vessel that bumps into you, living in a constant state of agitation and conflict. Or you can learn the lesson of the wise man. You can see the empty boats for what they are. Let the feeling of anger arise and pass without a target, and return to the deep, profound peace of your own journey. Of course, here is the next part of the script. 8. Expanded to approximately 1,500 words. 8. The Jataka tale of the patient Monkey King. The power of patience, Kanti. In our journey so far, we have explored the urgency of our situation and the skillful means to work with powerful emotions like anger. But all of these practices rest upon a single, foundational virtue. It is a quality our modern world often misunderstands, mistaking it for weakness or passivity. Yet in the Buddhist tradition, it is considered a superpower, a form of immense strength, and a protector of the heart. This virtue is patience. In the Pali language, the word is kanti. It means more than just waiting. It means forbearance, endurance, and a radical acceptance of the present moment without reactivity. In a world that screams for instant results, instant gratification, and immediate solutions, the practice of kanti is a quiet revolution. It is the ability to create space between what happens to us and how we respond. And in that space lies our freedom. The power of this virtue is beautifully illustrated in one of the Jataka tales, the stories of the Buddha's previous lives. In a time long past, the Bodhisattva, the being who would one day become the Buddha, was born as the king of a great troop of monkeys. He was magnificent in stature, with the strength of many, but his true power lay in his profound wisdom and his boundless patience. He was the wise and benevolent ruler of 80,000 monkeys who lived in a Himalayan paradise, a lush grove of trees on the banks of the great river Ganges. In this grove grew a special kind of mango tree. Its fruit was divine, unlike any other in the world. They were large and golden, with no strings or blemishes, and they possessed a fragrance and sweetness that was said to be like the nectar of the gods. The wise Monkey King knew the danger this treasure represented. With great foresight, he instructed his monkeys to always pluck any fruit that grew near the riverbank, to ensure that one would never fall into the water and float downstream, revealing their secret paradise to the world of men. But one day, a single mango, hidden by an ant's nest, ripened and fell into the Ganges. It was carried by the current downstream to the city of Benares, where it was caught in a fisherman's net. The fisherman, having never seen such a fruit, presented it to the human king of the land. The king tasted the mango, and his mind was instantly overcome with a powerful, obsessive craving. He had to have more. He had to possess the source of this divine fruit. His desire was immediate, impatient, and absolute. Gathering his army, the king traveled upriver, following the Ganges until he and his men discovered the hidden grove. There, they saw the 80,000 monkeys, leaping from branch to branch, feasting on the golden fruit. The king's craving instantly curdled into rage. "These foul beasts are stealing my fruit," he roared to his soldiers. "Surround the grove, slay every last one of them. We will feast on mangoes and monkey flesh tonight." Enso, his archers, surrounded the grove, their arrows drawn and ready. The monkeys, who had been living in peace, were suddenly trapped. The river was on one side, and an army of death was on the other. Panic erupted. They shrieked in terror, running frantically from tree to tree, with nowhere to go. Their minds were consumed by fear, but their king, the great Bodhisattva, remained calm. This is the moment of Kanti. While his entire world descended into chaos, his patient mind did not waver. He did not react with fear, which would have paralyzed him, nor with anger, which would have led to a futile, suicidal attack. His patience gave him the mental space to see the situation clearly, to assess the options, and to find a path to safety where none seemed to exist. A daring plan formed in his mind. He would use his great strength to leap across the wide river. On the other side, he would find a strong, rooted bamboo shoot, tie it to a tree, and then leap back, holding the other end of the shoot, to create a bridge for his entire troop to escape to the far bank. With a tremendous display of power and resolve, he took a running start and leaped, soaring through the air and landing safely on the other side of the Ganges. He found a long, sturdy bamboo shoot, gnawed it free at its base, and tied one end securely to a strong tree. But in his haste to save his people, he had forgotten to account for the length of bamboo that would be wrapped around his own body. He leaped back across the river, the shoot in his hand, but as he flew through the air, he realized with a sinking heart that it was too short. He could not reach the tree on his side. He was left dangling over the roaring river, clinging to the bamboo with one hand and a tree branch with the other. Below him, the king's archers took aim. This was a moment of absolute crisis. Yet even now, the Monkey King's patience and compassion did not fail him. He called out to his terrified monkeys, his voice calm and resolute. "Do not be afraid. I will be your bridge. Climb over my back, run along the bamboo, and escape to the safety of the far shore. Go quickly, but step with care. Trust in me." And so they did. One by one, 80,000 monkeys scrambled onto his back, their feet trampling his body, and ran across the bamboo bridge to freedom. The Monkey King endured this immense agony without complaint, his body being crushed under the weight, his only thought for the safety of his people. As the last monkey was crossing, another figure appeared. It was a monkey named Devadatta, who in that life, as in his final life, was the Buddha's jealous cousin and rival. Filled with malice, and seeing his king weakened and vulnerable, Devadatta decided to inflict a final, fatal blow. He climbed a high branch and leaped down with all his force onto the Monkey King's back. A sickening crack echoed through the grove. The king's spine was broken. The human king had watched this entire spectacle from below, his mouth agape. His initial anger and greed had slowly dissolved, replaced by a profound sense of awe and wonder. He had never witnessed such courage, such selflessness, such incredible leadership. He immediately commanded his men, "Lower your bows. Do not harm this noble creature." He had his men carefully bring the dying Monkey King down from the tree and lay him gently on a soft cloth. He washed the king's wounds and offered him cool water. Humbled and transformed, the human king knelt beside the Bodhisattva and asked the question that burned in his heart. "You are their king. You gave them everything, even making a bridge of your own body. Yet they trampled you, and one among them delivered you a mortal wound. Why did you do this for them? And how can you bear them? No ill will." The Monkey King, taking his last painful breaths, offered his final teaching. "O king," he whispered, "a true leader's duty is not to be served, but to serve. Not to possess, but to protect. The sharp pain in my broken body is nothing compared to the pain I would have felt in my heart if even one of my people had been pierced by your arrows. As for anger, what good would it do? Anger is a fire that consumes the one who holds it long before it ever singes its intended target. Patience and forgiveness are not signs of weakness. They are the armor of the wise. They are the marks of true strength. Having said this, the great Monkey King died. The human king, his heart broken and opened by this incredible display of Kanti, vowed to rule his own kingdom from that day forward with the same boundless compassion and patience he had just witnessed. This ancient story is our story. Each of us is the ruler of an inner kingdom, the vast, often chaotic troop of our own thoughts, feelings, and impulses. We are constantly besieged by the armies of the outside world, the pressure of a deadline, the sharp criticism of a colleague, a sudden financial crisis, an unexpected loss. Our first instinct is often that of the panicking monkeys run, to scream, to lash out in fear and confusion. The practice of patience, of Hanti, is the practice of finding the wise Monkey King within you. It is the ability to stand firm when the archers of stress and adversity have their bows drawn. It is the choice to not react blindly, but to breathe, to create space, and to find a wise and creative path forward to build a bridge. Sometimes, building that bridge requires us to endure discomfort, to let others trample us without retaliation. It is letting a friend vent their frustration at you, seeing their empty boat, and offering them the bridge of your silent, patient listening, instead of meeting their fire with your own. It is staying with a difficult task when you are frustrated and want to quit, offering yourself the bridge of your own forbearance. And we must also be aware of our own inner Devadatta, that voice of self-criticism and sabotage that waits for us to be vulnerable and then delivers the cruelest blow. Patience allows us to hear that voice without believing it's poison. In a world that worships speed, Kanti is our sanctuary. It is not about passively waiting for things to get better. It is the active, courageous, and compassionate art of holding steady in the storm. It is the wisdom that allows us to absorb the blows of life without breaking, and in doing so, to create a bridge to safety for ourselves and for everyone around us. 9. The two acrobats, balancing self, care, and care for others. As we walk this path of self-awareness, we inevitably come to a crossroads, a dilemma that lies at the very heart of our modern lives. It is the perceived conflict between our responsibility to ourselves and our responsibility to others. The world seems to pull us in two opposite directions at once. One voice, the voice of traditional self-sacrifice, tells us that to be a good persona, good parent, partner, employee, or friend, we must always put others first. It tells us that our needs are secondary, that taking time for ourselves is an act of selfishness. This path can lead to a state of depletion, where we give and give until our own well is dry, leaving us exhausted, resentful, and with little of value left to offer. In response to this, another voice has grown loud in our culture, the voice of self-care. It tells us to protect our energy, to set firm boundaries, to put ourselves first, always. While born from a healthy impulse, this path, when taken to an extreme, can lead to a different kind of poverty, a state of guarded isolation, a disconnection from the beautiful, messy, and ultimately rewarding work of caring for others. We are caught in a pendulum swing between guilt and disconnection, between burnout and loneliness. But the wisdom of the Buddha, as always, offers us a middle way. It dissolves this false choice and reveals a deeper, more integrated truth. This truth is captured perfectly in a short, profound story he told about two acrobats. The Buddha asks us to imagine A bustling village square. A crowd has gathered, their faces turned upward in anticipation. In the center of the square, a master acrobat and his young apprentice are about to perform a death-defying feat. The master places the bottom of a tall, polished bamboo pole on his forehead, adjusting it until it is perfectly balanced. The young girl, his apprentice, nimble and light, begins to climb. The act is a living metaphor for any interdependent relationship. The master is the base, the foundation. The girl is the one who climbs, who ventures out. Their safety, their success, their very lives depend on their mutual balance and attention. If the master wobbles, the girl will fall. If the girl loses her footing, she will bring the master down with her. The crowd falls silent. The air is thick with tension. As the girl makes her way up the precarious pole, the master calls out his instruction. His voice is steady, but you can hear the focus within it. "All right, my dear," he says, "here is the plan. You look after me, and I will look after you. By watching out for each other, by protecting each other, we will perform our trick, earn our reward, and come down safe from this bamboo pole." His logic seems sound. It is the very definition of teamwork. But the young apprentice, high up on the pole, her life depending on this delicate balance, pauses. And from her high perch, she offers a correction born of profound, intuitive wisdom. "No, master," she calls down, her voice clear and confident. "That is not the way to do it. I have a better way. The way is this. I will look after myself, and you, master, you will look after yourself. In this way, by each of us protecting our own balance, we will perform our trick, earn our reward, and come down safe from this bamboo pole." The Buddha, having told this story to his monks, looked at them and said with a smile, "The apprentice spoke the truth." He then went on to explain the deep wisdom contained in her words, a wisdom that can untangle the central knot of our lives. What did the apprentice mean by, "I will look after myself"? Was it a selfish declaration of independence? In this context, looking after oneself means taking absolute responsibility for one's own stability. For the girl on the pole, it means paying 100% attention to her own body, her own balance, the placement of her hands and feet. She cannot afford to be distracted by worrying about her master. Her focus must be internal. If she maintains her own perfect balance, she becomes light, stable, and predictable. She makes the master's job possible. By looking after herself, she is, in the most practical way possible, looking after him. For us, looking after ourselves is the work of the spiritual path. It is the practice of mindfulness, paying attention to our own inner state. Am I balanced right now, or am I being pulled by anxiety? Am I on solid ground, or am I on the shaky footing of anger? It means cultivating virtue, so we are not destabilized by guilt or remorse. It means developing wisdom, so we are not thrown off balance by delusion. This inner work is not selfish. It is the fundamental prerequisite for being of any genuine, sustainable service to others. You cannot be a stable pole for your child, your partner, or your community if you yourself are wobbling all over the place. Your stability is the greatest gift you can offer. The Buddha then completes the teaching, because this is only half of the equation. He asks, and how does one, in protecting others, protect oneself? This is the beautiful reversal, the other side of the coin. He answers, by protecting others through patience, non-harming, loving, kindness, and compassion, one protects oneself. This is the brilliant synthesis that resolves the entire dilemma. The two actions are not separate. True self-care naturally leads to the capacity for other care, and true other care, when practiced with wisdom, becomes the ultimate form of self-care. Let's see how this works in our lives. Consider a parent. The parent who follows the master's initial, flawed plan says, "I will look after my child, and my child will look after me by making me happy and fulfilled." This parent sacrifices their own sleep, health, and well-being, pouring everything into the child. But because their own pole is wobbling from exhaustion and resentment, the care they offer is often irritable, anxious, and impatient. They are an unstable base. The parent who follows the apprentice's wise plan says, "I must first look after myself." This parent ensures they are rested. They tend to their own mental health. They maintain their own friendships and interests. They are a stable, well-balanced pole. And from this place of fullness and stability, the care they offer their child is joyful, patient, and deeply nourishing. By protecting their own well-being, they are protecting their child's. Consider a doctor, a therapist, or anyone in a caregiving role. The caregiver who tries to absorb all the pain of their patients without looking after themselves will inevitably suffer from burnout and compassion fatigue. Their desire to help others is noble, but by neglecting themselves, they lose the very capacity to help. They become an unstable pole. The wise caregiver knows they must protect themselves. They practice self-care. They have their own support system. They maintain healthy boundaries. This is not selfish. It is a professional and ethical necessity. It is what allows them to be a reliable source of healing for years to come. In our romantic relationships, the dynamic is crystal clear. The master's flawed plan is codependency. You be in charge of my happiness, and I'll be in charge of yours. This leads to a desperate, unstable dance where both people are looking at the other, trying to control and fix them, while no one is watching their own feet. The apprentice's wise plan is interdependence. I will take responsibility for my own balance, my own happiness. You take responsibility for yours. And from that place of two whole, stable individuals, we will create a beautiful, collaborative dance. The parable teaches us that these two movements, looking inward and looking outward, are part of a single, fluid motion. When you sit in meditation to calm your mind, you are not just doing it for you. You are doing it for your partner, who will receive your calmness instead of your anxiety. You are doing it for your children, who will be raised in a house of peace instead of a house of chaos. You are doing it for your colleagues, who will meet a focused and kind person, not a stressed and reactive one. Your inner work is a gift to everyone you meet. And when you practice patience with a difficult person, when you extend compassion to someone who is suffering, when you practice loving, kindness wishing well for others, you are also protecting yourself. You are protecting yourself from the poison of anger, the pain of resentment, and the suffering of a closed and guarded heart. Wishing for another to be happy is one of the fastest ways to feel happiness yourself. So, where is the balance point on your own pole? Are you so busy trying to hold someone else up that you've forgotten to check your own footing? Or are you so focused on your own perfect balance that you have forgotten to offer a steady hand to the person climbing above you? The path is not a choice between one or the other. It is the wisdom to see that self-care is other care. Other care is self-care. Look after yourself to protect the world. Look after the world to protect yourself. This, the Buddha tells us, is the only way to perform the trick, to earn the reward, and to come down safe from the high, precarious, and beautiful pole of life. 10. The concept of anicca, impermanence, the river that is never the same. We now arrive at the very heart of the Buddha's insight, the taproot from which the entire tree of his wisdom grows. It is a truth so simple it can be stated in a single word, yet so profound that to truly understand it in our bones is to change our relationship with everything. This truth is anicca, the universal law of impermanence. The teaching is this: everything changes. Everything is in a constant state of flux. Nothing, from the most distant star to the most fleeting thought, is permanent. Nothing is fixed. Everything that comes into being will, in time, pass away. This is not a depressing philosophy. It is not a call to nihilism. It is a simple, radical, and ultimately liberating description of reality itself. It is the foundational law of the universe. To understand anicca is to begin to understand the cause of our suffering and the path to our freedom. To grasp this truth, let us use an ancient and powerful metaphor: a flowing river. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus famously said, "You cannot step into the same river twice." The Buddha's understanding of anicca takes us even deeper into this image. Imagine yourself standing on the bank of a great river. You decide to step in. The cool water swirls around your ankles. It feels real, solid, substantial. But is it? The water that is touching your skin in this exact instant is, in the next instant, already downstream, replaced by new water that has traveled from miles away to meet you. You are not standing in a static body of water. You are standing in the middle of a process, a ceaseless flow. To think of it as the river is a convenient label, but the reality is just flowing. Now, you might think, okay, the water changes, but the river itself, the banks, the rocks on the bottom, that stays the same. But does it? The constant, powerful current is slowly, imperceptibly eroding the banks, smoothing the sharp edges of the rocks, carving a new channel. Over seasons and years, the river completely remakes its own form. The solid parts are also in flux, just on a slower timescale. And what about the one who steps into the river? You. Can you step into the same river twice? The person who stepped in yesterday is not the same person who stands here today. The cells in your body are constantly dying and being replaced. The thoughts in your mind are different. Your mood is different. Your hopes and fears have shifted. You, too, are a river of thoughts, feelings, sensations, and physical processes, all flowing and changing from moment to moment. So we have a changing person stepping into a changing river. This is anicca. It is the nature of all things. The problem is, we don't live this way. We live as though things are permanent. Our suffering arises not from the fact of change, but from our deep, instinctual resistance to it. We try to build a dam in the river. We try to grasp a handful of the flowing water and are shocked and frustrated when it slips through our fingers. We are constantly trying to freeze a reality that is fundamentally fluid. Look at this pattern in your own life. Think of a relationship with someone you love. You share a perfect momenta, beautiful conversation, a day filled with laughter and connection. It feels blissful. Our mind immediately tries to freeze this moment. We think, this is it. This is what our relationship should be like all the time. We cling to the memory of that perfect day, but the river flows on. Moods change, arguments happen, life introduces new stresses, and because we are attached to that one frozen snapshot of the past, we suffer. We think something has gone wrong. We feel a sense of loss and disappointment. The wisdom of anicca doesn't ask us to not enjoy the beautiful moments. On the contrary, it asks us to savor them fully, precisely because they are fleeting. It asks us to let go of the demand that they be permanent, and to meet each new moment of the relationship with openness and grace. Consider our professional lives. We achieve a great success. We land a big client, finish a major project, get a promotion. We feel a sense of pride and accomplishment, but we cling to that identity. I am the successful manager. I am the top salesperson. But the river flows on. The company reorganizes. The market shifts. New challenges arise that we are not prepared for. If we are clinging to the identity of that past success, we suffer. We feel like a failure. The wisdom of Anicca is to understand that our careers, like our lives, are processes. There are seasons of great achievement and seasons of quiet learning. Each has its own value. Nowhere is our war against Anicca more apparent than in our relationship with our own bodies. Our culture is obsessed with trying to freeze the body in a state of youthful perfection. We fight every wrinkle, every gray hair, every sign of aging, as if it were a personal failure. We spend billions of dollars on products and procedures designed to deny the undeniable truth that our bodies are rivers, constantly flowing from birth, through maturity, to old age, and eventual decay. This is a battle we are guaranteed to lose, and it causes untold anxiety and suffering. The wisdom of Anicca is not to neglect the body, but to meet its changes with kindness and acceptance, appreciating the unique beauty and wisdom that each stage of life's river has to offer. The liberating news, the great gift of Anicca, is that this law applies to everything, including our pain. Because everything changes, no suffering is permanent. The deep ache of grief you feel today will change. The sharp sting of anxiety that grips your chest will shift. The heavy cloak of depression will not last forever. These too are just water in the river. They will flow on. Knowing this does not magically erase pain, but it makes it bearable. It gives us the strength to endure, rooted in the certainty that this, too, shall pass. Furthermore, Anicca is the very foundation of hope and growth. If things were permanent, no change would be possible. A mistake would brand you for eternity. A bad habit would be a life sentence. Healing from trauma would be impossible. Forgiveness would be meaningless. It is only because things change that we can learn, grow, evolve, and become better versions of ourselves. The person who acted out of ignorance yesterday is not the same person standing here today, armed with new insight. How do we practice with this? We can become river watchers. We can intentionally cultivate the perception of Anicca in our daily lives. Look at the clouds drifting and changing shape in the sky. Watch the steam rise and disappear from a cup of tea. Notice the way the light in a room shifts throughout the day. See the world not as a collection of static nouns, but as a symphony of dynamic verbs. Everything is flowing, changing, becoming, and most importantly, we can watch the river of our own mind. When you sit to meditate, you are sitting on the bank of your own inner stream. Watch the thoughts. They arise from nowhere. They stay for a moment, and they vanish. Don't cling to the pleasant ones. Don't fight the unpleasant ones. Just watch them flow by. Observe the sensations in your body: an itch, a warmth, a coolness. They appear, they change, they disappear. Watch your emotions swell and recede like tides. The practice is to simply witness this endless flow without interfering, without building dams, without trying to grasp the water. In doing so, you begin to untie the knot of suffering. You stop fighting with reality. And in this surrender, there is an incredible peace. To struggle against the current of Anicca is exhausting and futile. To learn to turn around, to relax, and to float with the river of life that is the path of grace, ease, and profound freedom Anicca is not a theory to believe. It is the very texture of reality, and seeing it clearly is the beginning of wisdom. 11. The concept of dukkha, suffering, the leaky cart, and the rocky road. Having seen the fundamental truth of anicca, that all things are in a constant state of flow, we are now prepared to look directly at the Buddha's first and most foundational, noble truth. This is the truth of dukkha. This ancient Pali word, dukkha, is most often translated into English as suffering. And for many people hearing this for the first time, this can be a difficult doorway to enter. It can sound pessimistic, morbid, even life-denying. It can seem as though the Buddha is declaring that life is nothing but misery and pain. But this is a profound misunderstanding. To understand the first noble truth is not to become a pessimist. It is to become a realist. Imagine you go to a wise and compassionate doctor because you have been feeling unwell for a long time. A good doctor does not say, "Oh, just think positive thoughts and it will go away." A good doctor conducts a thorough examination and then sits down with you and gives you a clear, honest diagnosis. They name the illness. They do this not to frighten you or to make you miserable, but because a clear diagnosis is the absolutely essential first step toward a cure. You cannot heal an illness that you refuse to acknowledge. The Buddha is the great physician of the mind, and his first noble truth is his loving, compassionate, and utterly honest diagnosis of the human condition. He is not saying that life is devoid of joy, beauty, and happiness. He is saying that within our ordinary, unenlightened existence, there is a fundamental, underlying quality of unsatisfactoriness, of friction, of dis-ease that we all experience. And by having the courage to look at it, to name it, we can begin the process of healing it. To understand the different flavors of dukkha, let us use a metaphor. Imagine that your life is a journey in a wooden cart. This cart is your body and your mind. The road you are traveling on is the world, with all its challenges and changes. The first and most obvious type of suffering is called dukkha. This means the suffering of pain. In our metaphor, this is when your cart hits a huge pothole or a sharp rock in the road. An axle breaks. A wheel shatters. You are thrown from your seat and injured. This is the unmistakable ouch of life. It is the physical pain of a migraine headache, a broken bone, or a chronic illness. It is the sharp, searing emotional pain of losing a loved one, the agony of betrayal, the terror of a panic attack, or the heartbreak of a failed relationship. This is the suffering everyone acknowledges. It is loud, obvious, and undeniable. The second type of suffering is more subtle. It is called viparinama dukkha. This is the suffering of change. Back to our cart. Imagine you have been traveling for miles on that rocky, uncomfortable road, and suddenly you come to a newly paved stretch. It is perfectly smooth. The sun is shining, a gentle breeze is blowing, and your cart is gliding along almost silently. It is wonderful. It is pleasant. You feel happy. But where is the suffering in this? The dukkha lies in the knowing, conscious or unconscious, that this smooth patch of road will end. There is a subtle anxiety that comes with pleasure, a fear of its inevitable departure. This is so wonderful. I don't want it to end. That very thought is a form of suffering. Furthermore, when you do inevitably hit the rocky road again, the contrast makes the bumps feel even worse than before. The memory of the smoothness makes the present roughness more painful. This is the suffering inherent in our attachment to pleasant experiences. You are on a wonderful vacation. The dukkha is the sadness you feel on the last day, the ache of knowing you have to return to routine. You are at a joyful party with friends. The dukkha is that slightly melancholy feeling when you are driving home and the silence returns. You achieve a great success. The dukkha is the pressure to maintain that success, the fear of losing it. This suffering is not born of pain, but of pleasure. It is the direct result of clinging to the water of the river, of resisting the universal law of anicca. The third type of suffering is the most subtle, the most pervasive, and the most important to understand. It is called sankhara dukkha. This is the suffering of conditioned existence. In our metaphor, this has nothing to do with the bumps in the road or the smooth patches. This is the built-in, fundamental unsatisfactoriness of the cart itself. Even on the smoothest road, the wheel still wobbles a little. The axle still makes a faint, squeaking sound. There is a constant, low-grade vibration as the wooden wheels roll along. There is a draft that comes through the cracks in the floorboards. The seat is never perfectly comfortable. The cart is inherently unreliable. It is conditioned. That is, it is made of parts, and anything made of parts is subject to falling apart. It requires constant maintenance and is never perfect. This is sankhara dukkha. This is the background radiation of our lives. It is the low-grade anxiety that hums beneath the surface even on a good day. It is the feeling of restlessness that makes you pick up your phone and start scrolling for no reason. It is the vague sense of dissatisfaction, the existential whisper of, "Is this all there is?" It is the friction of being a vulnerable, mortal human being in a complex, unpredictable world. When we feel this pervasive background dukkha, we often think there is something wrong with us. We think, "I have a good job, a loving family, my health is okay. So why do I still feel this vague unease? Why am I not perfectly happy?" We blame ourselves. We think we are deficient. The Buddha's diagnosis is a radical act of compassion because it tells us, it is not your fault. You are not broken. This feeling is not a sign of your personal failure. It is the nature of the cart. It is built into the very fabric of conditioned existence. To be alive is to experience this subtle friction. When the Buddha declared the truth of dukkha, he was simply saying, acknowledge the nature of your vehicle and your journey. To deny it is to live in a state of delusion, constantly wondering why you are not comfortable. We spend our lives trying to find a permanently smooth road, or trying to upgrade our leaky cart to a perfect one, believing that external conditions will finally solve this inner feeling of friction, but they never do. To acknowledge dukkha is to finally abandon this fruitless project. It is to accept the diagnosis. It's like feeling the sting of the poisoned arrow, and instead of denying it or distracting yourself, you say, "Ah, here is the arrow. Now, what is the cure?" This is why the first noble truth is not a pessimistic declaration, but the most hopeful starting point imaginable. It turns our attention away from the impossible task of perfecting the outside world and toward the possible task of healing our inner world. It tells us that while the cart may always be a bit leaky and the road may always have bumps, it is possible to cultivate a mind that is so peaceful and resilient that it can make the journey with grace, ease, and even joy. So the invitation is not to wallow in suffering, but to simply notice its presence with a wise and gentle attention. Notice the big bumps of pain. Notice your resistance to pleasant things ending. And most importantly, notice the subtle, constant vibration of the cart. See it not as your enemy, but as your teacher. It is the great motivator, the bell of awakening that calls you to seek a peace that does not depend on the road or the cart. It is the loving diagnosis that opens the door to the cure. 12. The concept of anatta, no self. The house with no owner We have journeyed together through the truth of impermanence, anicca, seeing that everything is a river in constant flow. We have sat with the truth of unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, understanding the inherent friction of our unenlightened existence. Now, we arrive at the third, and perhaps most challenging, counterintuitive, and profoundly liberating of the Buddha's core teachings. It is the truth of anatta, or not self. The idea of no self can feel startling. To our Western ears, conditioned to value individualism and personal identity, it can sound like a threat, a nihilistic statement that we do not exist. But I invite you, just for these next few minutes, to set aside any fear or resistance and to approach this concept with a soft curiosity. For within this teaching lies the key to unlocking the prison of the ego and experiencing a freedom so vast it is almost unimaginable. Anatta does not mean that you do not exist. You are clearly here, listening to these words. Your life is real. Your joy is real. Your pain is real. What anatta points to is that you do not exist as a separate, solid, continuous, and independent entity. The self we feel ourselves to be, that little me inside our heads who seems to be running the show, is not what it appears to be. To understand this, let us use a metaphor. Imagine that what you call your self is a house. This house has a physical structure, its foundation and walls, that is your body. It has various rooms inside your mind, with its capacity for memory, planning, and imagination. The house is filled with furniture, your thoughts, opinions, emotions, and beliefs. And there is a current of electricity running through it, lighting up the rooms. This is your consciousness, your basic awareness. Most of us live with the unquestioned assumption that somewhere inside this house there is an owner, a central command center, a CEO, a little person in the control tower, pulling the levers and pushing the buttons, a permanent, abiding me, who is the thinker of the thoughts, the feeler of the feelings, and the master of the house. The teaching of anatta is an invitation to go on a search, to conduct a thorough investigation of this entire house, and to see if we can actually find this owner. Let us begin our tour with the most obvious place to look, the physical structure of the house. The body. Is the self here? Is your body a fixed, solid thing that you can call me? As we saw with anicca, your body is in a constant state of flux. It is a process, not a thing. The cells that make up your body today are not the same cells that were there 7 years ago. Furthermore, your body is composed entirely of not body elements. The food you ate, the water you drank, the air you are breathing right now, these all come from the outside world. The earth, the sun, the rain are all present in your physical form. Your body is not separate from the world. It is a temporary manifestation of the world. So, we cannot find a permanent, independent owner here. The foundation is part of the landscape. All right, so let's go inside the house and look at the furniture. Let's look at our feelings and sensations. Are you your feelings? You feel joy, then sadness, then boredom, then irritation. Feelings are like the weather passing through the house, sometimes sunny, sometimes stormy, but constantly changing. They arise due to contact with the world, and they pass away. If you were your feelings, you would cease to exist when a feeling fades. So the owner is not here among the furniture of feelings. What about our thoughts? Surely, the thinker is the self, but look closely at the thoughts themselves. Where do they come from? A thought appears, seemingly from nowhere. It stays for a moment, and then it vanishes. Then another one appears, Are you creating them? Or are you simply aware of them? Most of our thoughts are just conditioned responses, like echoes from the past, bits of language and ideas we picked up from our parents, our culture, our education. They are like old radio broadcasts echoing through the rooms of the house. They are happening, but we can't find a single consistent thinker who is authoring them all. Well then, maybe the self is in our personality, our habits, our deeply held beliefs and intentions. This is the part we feel most identified with. I am a kind person. I am an anxious person. I am a Democrat. I love classical music. This part of the mind is what Buddhism calls sankhara, or mental formations. But are these formations a solid, independent self? Or are they too just conditioned processes? Your personality was shaped by your childhood. Your opinions were shaped by your experiences. Your tastes were shaped by your culture. They are deep habits, strong currents of wind that blow through the house, opening and shutting certain doors reliably. They are powerful, but they are not a permanent, essential owner. They are a collection of tendencies. So, we come to the last resort. Maybe the self is consciousness itself, the pure awareness that is watching all of this. But the Buddha asks us to look closely even at this. Consciousness is not a monolithic spotlight that is always on. It arises in dependence on conditions. Seeing consciousness arises when an eye makes contact with a visible form. Hearing consciousness arises when an ear makes contact with a sound. Thinking consciousness arises when the mind makes contact with an idea. It flickers in and out of existence, moment by moment, depending on its object. It is like the electricity in the house. It only manifests when a particular lamp is switched on. There is no central, continuous knower standing behind the knowing. There is just the knowing itself, arising and passing. After our exhaustive tour, we stand in the living room of the house, and we come to a startling conclusion. We have searched every foundation, every room, every piece of furniture, every current of energy. We have found many processes, functions, and interconnected events, but we have not found a single, permanent, independent owner. The house is empty of a master. The self is a convenient name we give to this incredibly complex, ever-changing process of mind and body. It is a useful convention for navigating the world, just as we use the name New York City to refer to an ever-changing collection of millions of people, buildings, and streets. But there is no single New York City entity. There is only the dynamic, interconnected process. Why is this good news? Why is this the key to liberation? First, if there is no fixed, solid self, you are free from the prison of your identity. You are not your past mistakes. You are not your perceived failures. You are not your personality type, your job title, or the story you have been telling yourself your whole life. All of those are just temporary patterns in the flow. Because you are a process, you have infinite capacity for change. Healing, growth, and transformation are your birthright. Second, if there is no solid me at the center of the house, then who is it that gets offended? Who is it that gets insulted? Who is it that feels the sting of criticism? The teaching of anatta is the ultimate foundation for the parable of the empty boat. When an insult comes your way, it is just an empty boat bumping into a house with no owner. The words arrive. They are perceived. An unpleasant feeling may arise, but there is no solid me to take it personally. This insight dramatically reduces our social anxiety, our defensiveness, and our reactivity. It is the end of so much needless suffering. Finally, realizing that the self is made entirely of not self, elements of sunlight, water, food, air, and the ideas and kindness of others. The hard boundary between you and the universe dissolves. You are not a separate fragment fighting against the world. You are a wave in the ocean of existence. Your breath connects you to the air all beings share. Your body connects you to the earth. Your consciousness connects you to the great mystery of life itself. This is the end of alienation. It is the beginning of a deep, unshakable compassion for all life, because you see that all life is fundamentally connected to you. The practice here is a subtle shift in perception. The next time a powerful emotion, like anger, arises, ask yourself with genuine curiosity, who is it that is angry? Look for the I at the center of the storm. Can you find it? Or do you just find the raw sensations of anger itself? The heat, the tension, the racing thoughts. When you find yourself thinking, I am so anxious, try gently rephrasing it in your mind to, there is a feeling of anxiety present. Notice how this small change creates space and lessens the identification. Anatta is not an annihilation. It is a letting go. It is the end of the exhausting, lifelong project of building, promoting, and defending a fictional character. When you realize the house has no owner, you can finally relax. You can stop worrying about what others think of your house. You can just enjoy living in it, allowing the doors and windows to be open, letting the winds of life blow through freely, beautifully, and without fear. 13. The Four Noble Truths as a practical framework. In our journey together, we have explored the landscapes of the mind and heart. We have sat with stories of rafts and elephants, and we have waded into the deep waters of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. We have gathered the essential components of the Buddha's insight. Now, it is time to assemble them. It is time to look at the blueprint itself, the very first teaching the Buddha gave after his enlightenment, the foundational structure upon which all other teachings are built. This is the framework of the Four Noble Truths. It is essential to understand that these are not dogmas to be believed in. They are not articles of faith. The Buddha did not say, believe these four things. He said, know these four things. See them for yourself. They are a practical, diagnostic framework for healing, presented by the great physician of the mind. They are a method, not a creed. We have already touched on each of them, but by examining them together as a unified whole, we can see their true power as a tool for navigating our lives. The first noble truth is the truth of dukkha. This is the diagnosis. This is the physician's clear, honest, and compassionate assessment of our condition. As we explored with the leaky cart, it is the simple acknowledgement. There is suffering, there is unsatisfactoriness, there is friction in our unenlightened experience of life. This isn't a judgment, it's a starting point. It's the courage to admit that the arrow is in us, that the house is on fire, that the cart has a wobbly wheel. This dukkha arises from a fundamental conflict with reality. We, who believe ourselves to be solid, permanent selves, are living in a world that is profoundly impermanent. Anicca. We, who have a deep-seated craving for security and control, are faced with a reality that is fundamentally uncontrollable. The friction between our clinging and the constant flow of life is dukkha. It is the tension between our desire for permanence and the truth of impermanence. The practice of the first truth is simply to acknowledge this friction when it appears. When you feel that surge of irritation in traffic, that pang of loneliness, that subtle hum of anxiety, the practice is to mindfully recognize, Ah, this is a moment of dukkha. You don't have to fix it yet. You don't have to judge it. You simply have to see the symptom clearly. That is the first, crucial step. The second noble truth is the truth of the origin of dukkha. This is the etiology, or the cause of the illness. A good doctor doesn't just name the symptom. They identify its root cause. The Buddha states that the origin of our suffering is tanha. This Pali word means thirst, craving, or clinging. It is the relentless, driving energy of the mind that is always wanting something other than what is. This thirst takes three primary forms. First, there is the craving for sense pleasures. This is the most obvious form. The thirst for delicious tastes, beautiful sights, pleasant sounds, and enjoyable physical sensations. In our modern world, this is the engine of consumerism. It is the restless scrolling through social media, looking for the next interesting image, the next little hit of dopamine. It is the addiction to distraction, the constant seeking of entertainment to avoid the discomfort of simply being with ourselves. Second, there is the craving for existence or becoming. This is the deep, subtle thirst of the ego. It is the craving to be something, to achieve a solid and lasting identity. I want to be successful. I want to be seen as intelligent. I want to be loved. I want to be a spiritually advanced person. It is the deep-seated fear of insignificance and the drive to prop up the fictional owner of the house we discussed in the teaching of anatta. This craving is what keeps us on the hamster wheel of ambition long after our basic needs are met. Third, there is the craving for non-existence or annihilation. This is the other side of the coin, aversion. It is the thirst to get rid of what is unpleasant. I want this headache to go away. I want this annoying person to leave. I want to annihilate this feeling of anxiety. It is the powerful energy of pushing away, resisting, and fighting with our present reality. In its most extreme form, this craving for non-existence can manifest as self-harm or suicidal thoughts. The practice of the second truth is investigation. When you feel the presence of dukkha, you ask with a gentle curiosity, what thirst is here? What am I craving right now? Am I trying to get something pleasant? Am I trying to prop up my sense of self? Or am I trying to push something unpleasant away? Just seeing the craving clearly begins to rob it of its power. The third noble truth is the truth of the cessation of dukkha. This is the prognosis. Here, the great physician delivers the profoundly hopeful news. This condition is treatable. There is a cure. The cessation of suffering is possible. This state of liberation is called nibbana or nirvana. This is perhaps the most misunderstood concept in all of Buddhism. It is not a heaven you go to when you die. The word nibbana literally means to extinguish or to unbind. What is extinguished? The three fires of greed, hatred, and delusion, the very cravings that cause our suffering. When the thirst is quenched, the suffering ceases. What are we unbound from? We are unbound from the endless cycle of reactivity, from being a slave to our conditioning. We are unbound from the leaking, wobbly cart. Nibbana is the state of sublime peace, profound clarity, and unshakable freedom that is the mind's natural state when the distortions of craving have been removed. It is the far shore, the tamed elephant, the house at peace. It is available to us in this very life. This truth gives us the hope and inspiration to walk the path. The fourth noble truth is the truth of the path to the cessation of dukkha. This is the prescription. A doctor doesn't just give you a good prognosis. They give you a detailed treatment plan. This is the Noble Eightfold Path. We will explore it in more detail later, but for now, we can understand it as a holistic program for well-being, comprised of 3 essential trainings. First is the training in wisdom. This involves cultivating right view, seeing the world clearly, understanding these 4 noble truths and right intention, which means aligning our hearts with kindness, compassion, and the desire for freedom. This is getting the diagnosis right and setting the correct goal for our treatment. Second is the training in ethical conduct. This includes right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is about cleaning the wound and creating a sterile environment for healing. It means stopping the behaviors, the lying, the harsh speech, the harming of others that agitate the mind and create more suffering for ourselves and those around us. A calm and ethical life is the necessary foundation for deep inner work. Third is the training in mental discipline. This includes right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is the core of the treatment. It is the active, moment-to-moment training of the mind through meditation to see our habits clearly and to gently uproot the deep-seated tendencies of craving. Let's see how you can use this 4-part framework as a tool in a simple, everyday moment. You are driving and you get stuck in a traffic jam. You feel a surge of frustration and stress. 1. Diagnosis. Instead of just stewing in the anger, you apply the first truth. You mindfully acknowledge, this feeling of being trapped and irritated. This is a moment of dukkha. 2. Etiology. You apply the second truth, investigating the cause. What is the craving here? I am craving for reality to be different. I am craving to be moving. I am pushing away and resisting the present situation. 3. Prognosis. You remember the third truth. Is it possible to be peaceful, even while stuck in traffic? Yes. Freedom from this specific irritation is possible right now. You remember that peace is an inside job. 4. Prescription. You apply the fourth truth. You practice right mindfulness by feeling the sensations of frustration in your body without being consumed by them. You practice right intention by softening your heart, perhaps even wishing the other drivers well. You practice right effort by gently returning your mind to the feeling of your breath again and again. Suddenly, a miserable traffic jam has been transformed into a moment of profound spiritual practice. This is the power of the 4 noble truths. They are not a belief system. They are a verb. They are a diagnostic tool that you can use in any moment to move from confusion and reactivity to clarity and freedom. They are the Buddha's timeless gift, the user's manual for the human heart. 14. The Noble Eightfold Path, the art of walking. We have now arrived at the final and most practical of the 4 noble truths. We have received the diagnosis, the truth of dukkha. We have understood the cause, the truth of craving, or tanha. We have been given the hopeful prognosis, the truth that suffering can cease, the promise of nibbana. And now, the great physician hands us the prescription. This is the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the how-to. It is the detailed, step-by-step treatment plan for healing the heart. But the word path can be a bit misleading. We tend to think of a path as a linear sequence. You take step 1, then step 2, then step 3, until you reach the end. But the Noble Eightfold Path is not like that. It is more like learning the art of walking. When you walk gracefully, many things are happening at once. Your legs move in rhythm, your arms swing for balance, your eyes scan the terrain ahead, and your inner ear maintains your equilibrium. You don't think, first, I'll use my eyes, second, I'll use my legs. It is a single, integrated, holistic activity. The 8 factors of this path are the same. They are 8 interwoven aspects of a single beautiful way of walking through life. They support and deepen each other. To make this profound guide more accessible, we can group these 8 factors into the 3 essential trainings of the Buddhist path. First, the training in wisdom, which is like having a map and a compass. Second, the training in ethical conduct, which is the skill of placing your feet so you don't stumble or cause harm. And third, the training in mental discipline, which is developing the core strength and balance to stay on the path. Let's begin with the training in wisdom, Panya. This is about knowing where you are going and why. It consists of the first 2 path factors. The very first is right view, or right understanding. This is your map. You wouldn't set out on a major journey without first looking at a map of the terrain. Right view is seeing the world clearly, as it actually is. It means understanding the truths we have been exploring, the law of cause and effect, the reality of anicca, dukkha, and anatta, and the framework of the 4 Noble Truths itself. It is the clear-sighted perspective that recognizes that the house is on fire and that there is a way out. This is not about blind faith. It's about adopting a wise perspective that orients your entire life. The second factor of wisdom is right intention, or right resolve. If right view is the map, right intention is your compass. It is about setting the direction of your heart. It asks the question, why am I walking this path? The Buddha says this intention should have 3 flavors. The first is the intention of renunciation, the intention to let go of clinging, to move towards simplicity instead of complexity. The second is the intention of loving kindness, the active cultivation of goodwill for all beings, which is the direct antidote to anger and ill will. The third is the intention of harmlessness, or compassion, the resolve to not cause harm to any living creature, which is the antidote to cruelty. Right intention purifies our motivation, ensuring we are walking toward freedom and peace, not just trying to escape our pain. Next is the training in ethical conduct, Sila. If wisdom is the map and compass, ethics is how you actually walk through the world. It's about moving with care and grace, ensuring that your journey doesn't create suffering for yourself or for others you meet along the way. This training includes 3 path factors. The third factor is right speech. Our words are incredibly powerful. They can be weapons that cause deep wounds, or they can be instruments of healing and connection. Right speech is the art of using them wisely. It means abstaining from 4 kinds of harmful speech: lying, divisive speech, gossip that sets people against each other, harsh speech, insults, yelling, verbal abuse, and idle chatter, pointless talk that distracts and agitates the mind. Positively, it means committing to speaking what is true, what is useful, what is kind, and what is timely. The fourth factor is right action. This is aligning our physical behaviors with our compassionate intentions. At its core, it means refraining from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. In our modern lives, this translates to having a deep respect for all life, respecting the property and boundaries of others, and ensuring that our sexual expression is rooted in mutual consent, care, and kindness, rather than exploitation or harm. The fifth factor is right livelihood. This genius of the Buddha was to see that our spiritual life is not separate from our work life. Right livelihood is the practice of earning a living in a way that does not violate our ethical principles. It means avoiding professions that are based on harm, deception, or exploitation, such as trading in weapons, trafficking human beings, or engaging in fraudulent business practices. It encourages us to find a way to offer our talents to the world that feels honorable and aligns with our deepest values, making our work a part of our path. Finally, we come to the training in mental discipline, samadhi. This is the inner work, the training of the mind itself. If ethics is how we walk, mental discipline is the development of our core strength, our focus, and our balance. This is the heart of meditation practice and includes the final 3 path factors. The 6th factor is right effort. This is the art of applying our energy wisely, recalling the lesson of the lute. It is not about straining, but about gentle, persistent application. The Buddha describes 4 great efforts. The effort to prevent unwholesome states, like anger or jealousy, from arising. The effort to abandon them if they have already arisen. The effort to cultivate wholesome states like kindness or generosity, and the effort to maintain those wholesome states that are already present. It is the patient, diligent work of a gardener tending the soil of the mind. The 7th factor is right mindfulness. This is the core practice of meditation, the skill of the tamed elephant. It is the capacity to pay attention to the present moment, intentionally and without judgment. It's being aware of your body, your feelings, your thoughts, and the world around you as it is happening, not as you wish it were. It is the quality that keeps your eyes open on the path, noticing the beauty, the obstacles, and the subtle shifts in the terrain from moment to moment. The 8th and final factor is right concentration. This is the fruit that grows from the other 7 factors working in harmony. When the mind is guided by wisdom, stabilized by ethical living, and clarified by mindfulness, it gains the ability to become unified and deeply still. This is right concentration. It is the ability to rest the mind's attention on a single object without distraction, leading to profound states of calm, joy, and insight. It is the deep, unwavering stability that allows us to see the most subtle workings of reality, the stability of the acrobat who can perform his feat with grace and confidence. These 8 factors are not a checklist. They are a living system. Your commitment to right speech calms your mind, making right concentration easier. Your practice of right mindfulness allows you to see your intentions more clearly, strengthening right intention. Your cultivation of right view inspires you to engage in right livelihood. Each path factor is a strand in a single, strong rope that pulls us from the shore of suffering to the shore of freedom. Do not be intimidated by this list. See it as a beautiful, complete, and compassionate guide. You do not have to perfect one before moving to the next. You simply begin where you are. Today, you might focus on right speech. Tomorrow, you might dedicate yourself more fully to right effort in your meditation. The path itself is the practice, and the beautiful truth is this: the destination is not found at the end of the path. The destination is embedded in every single step, every moment of mindfulness, every kind word, every compassionate intention that is the arrival. The art is not in finishing the journey, but in learning to walk this beautiful path right now. 15. The 5 hindrances, the weeds in the garden of the mind. We have now walked the entirety of the Noble Eightfold Path, the great prescription for healing. It is a beautiful and complete guide. Yet, when we actually try to walk this path, especially when we sit down to practice formal meditation, we encounter difficulties. The mind does not simply become calm on command. It wanders. It gets lost. It gets agitated. We find that the garden of our mind is already overgrown with certain stubborn, recurring patterns. In the Buddhist tradition, These universal obstacles are known as the 5 hindrances. It is crucial to understand that these are not signs of your personal failure. They are not a mark that you are bad at meditation. These hindrances are impersonal, universal mental states. They are like common weeds that appear in every single garden on earth. The goal is not to hate them or to feel discouraged by their presence. The goal is to become a skillful gardener too. Learn to recognize each weed, to understand the conditions that allow it to grow, and to know the gentle, wise method for removing it so that the flowers of clarity and peace can flourish. The Buddha used a powerful set of similes for these hindrances. He said, "A mind free from the hindrances is like a bowl of clear, still water in which you can see your own reflection perfectly. But when the hindrances are present, the water is disturbed and your reflection becomes distorted or completely obscured." The first hindrance is sensual desire. This is the mind's tendency to chase after pleasant experiences through the 5 senses. When you sit down to be quiet, this is the voice that says, "What's for dinner? I could really go for some pizza right now." It's the mind replaying a pleasant memory, fantasizing about a future vacation, thinking about sex, or simply feeling the urge to get up and do something more entertaining than just sitting here. It is the restless seeking of pleasure. The Buddha compared this hindrance to a bowl of water mixed with bright, colorful dyes. When the water is filled with red, blue, and yellow lac, you lean over to see your reflection, but all you can see are the swirling, seductive colors. You cannot see your own face clearly. In the same way, when the mind is overcome with desire, your awareness is colored by the object of that desire. You are not present. You are lost in a fantasy. The antidote to this is not to crush the desire with force, but to meet it with mindful awareness. You simply note its presence without judgment. Ah, desire has arisen, planning, fantasizing. You see the weed clearly. By shining the light of non-judgmental awareness upon it, the desire often loses its compulsive energy. You don't have to water it by following the fantasy. You just see it, acknowledge it, and gently return to the breath. The second hindrance is ill will or aversion. This is the opposite of desire. It is the mind pushing away, resisting, and fighting with unpleasant experiences. This is anger at the person who insulted you. It is irritation at the sound of a dog barking outside. It is frustration with your meditation practice itself. And very often, it is directed inward as self-criticism and judgment. "I'm so bad at this. I can't believe I made that mistake." The Buddha compared this hindrance to a bowl of water that is placed on a fire and is boiling. The water is bubbling, churning, and steaming. It is agitated and hot. If you try to see your reflection in a pot of boiling water, it is impossible. The image is completely shattered by the violent motion. This is what anger does to our mind. It makes clear seeing impossible. The direct antidote to the heat of ill will is the coolness of loving kindness, or metta. This is the practice of intentionally cultivating goodwill. If you are angry at a person, you can gently begin to repeat phrases like, "May they be well, may they be peaceful, may they be happy." This can feel difficult at first, but it is like pouring cool, clear water into the boiling pot. If the aversion is directed at yourself, you offer yourself the same kindness. "May I be well. May I be free from suffering." You meet the fire of anger, not with more fire, but with the soothing balm of compassion. The third hindrance is sloth and torpor. This is not just physical sleepiness, but a heavy, dull, foggy state of mind. It's a mental sinking, a lack of energy, a can't be bothered feeling. The mind feels dense, withdrawn, and unworkable. In meditation, this is when your head starts to nod, your concentration vanishes, and you feel like you're sinking into a thick swamp. The Buddha's simile for this was a bowl of water that is completely covered over with algae, moss, and water weeds. The surface is thick and green. The sunlight cannot penetrate it, and you certainly cannot see your reflection through the dense layer of growth. The mind has become stagnant. The antidote to this is to consciously arouse energy. The Buddha gave very practical advice. If you are sitting, stand up. If you are standing, begin walking meditation. Open your eyes and look at a source of light. Splash cool water on your face. You can also work internally by bringing to mind uplifting thoughts reflecting on the virtues of your teachers, the progress you have made on the path, or the incredible potential of the human mind for awakening. You do whatever is necessary to gently stir the stagnant water and let the light back in. The fourth hindrance is restlessness and worry. This is the classic monkey mind. The mind is like a bee trapped in a jar, buzzing frantically from one thing to another, unable to settle. This has two parts. The first is restlessness, the sheer agitation and inability to be still. The second is worry, which is often remorse about something we did or said in the past, or anxiety about something that might happen in the future. Did I lock the door? What if my presentation goes badly? It is the busy, scattered mind. The Buddha compared this state to a bowl of water that is being whipped up by a strong wind. The surface is not calm, but is a chaos of choppy waves and tiny ripples. Your reflection is there, but it is broken into 1,000 distorted, unrecognizable pieces. You can't get a clear picture of anything. The primary antidote here is the cultivation of calm and concentration. This is where the patient practice of returning to the breath is so crucial. Each time the mind is blown away by a gust of worry, you gently and firmly guide it back to the anchor of the breath. It is like building a windbreak around the bowl of water. You are not trying to stop the wind from blowing, but you are creating a sheltered space where the water can gradually become still again. Over time, the mind learns to settle. The fifth and final hindrance is skeptical doubt. This is not the intelligent, curious doubt that seeks truth. This is the paralyzing, cynical doubt that undermines our efforts. It's the voice that whispers, "Am I doing this right? Does any of this actually work? Maybe this is all a waste of time. I'm probably not capable of this anyway." It is a fundamental lack of trust in the path, in the teacher, or most commonly, in ourselves. The Buddha's simile for this was a bowl of water that is not only muddy, but has also been placed in a completely dark room. Even if the mud were to settle, there is no light by which to see. The mind is lost in a fog of confusion and uncertainty. The antidote here is twofold. First, we must seek clarity. This means removing intellectual confusion by studying the teachings, asking questions of a trusted guide, or reading from a reliable source. It's about letting the mud settle. Second, we must cultivate faith, or saddha. In Buddhism, faith is not blind belief. It is confidence born of experience. You place your trust in the path by reflecting on the moments it has worked for you, however small. You remember a moment of peace you felt, a time when loving kindness did ease your anger. You build confidence, brick by brick, based on your own experience. This is like turning on a light in the dark room. These 5 hindrances will visit all of us on our meditation cushions and in our daily lives. See them not as your enemies, but as your teachers. They show you exactly where the work needs to be done. By learning to recognize them without judgment, and by learning to apply the appropriate gentle remedy, you become a wise gardener of your own mind. And slowly, patiently, the weeds become less frequent, and the garden becomes a place of extraordinary clarity, beauty, and peace. 16. Metta, loving, kindness, the unconditional friendliness. Having identified the common weeds that grow in the garden of our mind, the 5 hindrances, we can now turn our attention to cultivating the most beautiful and powerful flowers. We begin with the direct antidote to the fire of ill will and the ultimate cure for the chill of isolation. We begin with the practice of metta. This Pali word is often translated as loving, kindness, but its essence is even broader. It is a universal, unconditional friendliness. It is a radiant, benevolent warmth extended to all beings, without exception and without expectation. It is crucial to understand how metta differs from the conventional love we usually talk about. Ordinary love is often transactional. It is conditional. It comes with attachments and expectations. We think, I love you because you are my family, or I love you because you make me feel good, or I love you because you agree with my views. This kind of love, while often beautiful, can easily curdle into its opposites: jealousy, possessiveness, fear, and resentment when the conditions are no longer met. It is a selective, preferential love. Metta is something altogether different. It is not an emotion you fall into. It is a quality of heart you actively cultivate. It is like the sun. The sun does not choose which beings to shine its warmth upon. It shines on the saint and the thief, on the beautiful flower and the stubborn weed, on the clean path and the muddy puddle. It gives its warmth freely, without discrimination, asking for nothing in return. Metta is this quality of boundless, open-hearted, well-wishing. Imagine your heart is a source of gentle, nourishing rain. This rain does not demand that the seeds it waters grow into a particular kind of flower. It does not withhold itself from the rocky ground. It simply falls everywhere, offering its life-giving potential to all that it touches, allowing each thing to flourish according to its own nature. This is the spirit of metta practice. It is the art of watering the entire world with kindness, starting with the very ground upon which you stand. So how do we cultivate this quality? The practice is systematic, like building a muscle. It is a meditation that unfolds in stages, gradually expanding the circle of our unconditional friendliness. Let us walk through it together. Find a comfortable posture, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths. The first stage of metta practice, and often the most challenging, is to direct this loving kindness toward yourself. This is not selfish. As we learned from the 2 acrobats, you cannot be a stable base for others if you are not stable yourself. You cannot offer water from an empty well, so we must begin by filling our own hearts. Bring your awareness to yourself, and gently, silently, begin to repeat these phrases, letting them resonate in your heart. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. As you repeat these words, try to connect with the intention behind them. Feel the wish for your own genuine well-being. For many of us, this is difficult. The inner critic arises with judgment, but here, you apply the practice to the practice itself. You meet that voice of self-criticism with metta. You simply notice it and gently return to the phrases, patiently, kindly, again and again. Once you have established a sense of warmth for yourself, you move to the second stage. Bring to mind a respected, beloved persona, dear friend, a mentor, a teacher, or a family member whom you love easily and unconditionally. Picture them in your mind's eye, and now, direct the flow of loving kindness to them. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering. Imagine the warmth of the sun, the light of the candle, flowing from your heart to theirs, wishing them every happiness. In the third stage, we expand the circle. Bring to mind a neutral person, someone you see often, but have no strong feelings about. The person who checks out your groceries, the mail carrier, a neighbor you only know by sight. We so often walk through the world, seeing people as mere functions, not as feeling beings. This practice dissolves that wall of indifference. Picture this neutral person and offer them the same sincere wishes. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. Now comes the most transformative stage. We intentionally bring to mind a difficult person, someone with whom there is friction, conflict, or irritation. It is wise to start with someone only mildly difficult, not the greatest trauma of your life. The purpose here is not to condone their harmful actions or to force yourself to like them. The purpose is to liberate your own heart from the prison of resentment. Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Metta is the act of dropping the coal, recognizing that their harmful actions likely come from their own suffering, their own empty boat. You extend the wish. May you be well. May you be happy. May you too be free from suffering. This act of radical generosity frees you. It is the ultimate act of emotional self-care. Finally, in the fifth stage, we let the circle expand to encompass all beings. Let your awareness radiate outwards from your heart. In front of you, behind you, to your left and to your right, above you and below you, to all your friends, to all neutral people, to all your difficult people, to all humans, to all animals, to all beings seen and unseen, in all corners of the universe. May all beings everywhere be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free from suffering. In this moment, your heart becomes as boundless as the sky. Lest you think this is merely a sentimental practice, with no real-world power, consider the story of the Buddha and the fearsome murderer, Angulimala. Angulimala, which means garland of fingers, was a terrifying serial killer who stalked the forests, murdering travelers and wearing a necklace made of their fingers. He was so feared that entire villages were abandoned. Even the king's armed soldiers were afraid to pursue him. One day, the Buddha, against the pleas of all his disciples, calmly and deliberately walked alone into the forest where Angulimala lived. Angulimala saw him coming and was delighted. Finally, he thought, a lone monk, an easy target. He drew his sword and began to run after the Buddha. But a strange thing happened. Though the Buddha was only walking at a normal pace, Angulimala, running with all his might, could not catch up to him. Exhausted and confused, he shouted, "Stop! Monk, stop!" The Buddha, without breaking his stride, turned his head and replied, his voice filled with a calm, resonant power. "I have stopped, Angulimala. It is you who have not stopped." Angulimala was stunned. He did not understand. "What do you mean?" he asked. "I have stopped killing. I have stopped causing harm," the Buddha said, his eyes radiating an unconditional friendliness that the murderer had never before experienced. "You are still running on the path of violence and hatred. You are the one who needs to stop." In that moment, faced with the unshakable, fearless, loving presence of the Buddha, Angulimala's entire world crumbled. The lifetime of rage and hatred that fueled him was extinguished by the cool water of metta. He threw down his sword, bowed at the Buddha's feet, and asked to become his student. He was ordained as a monk and eventually became an arhat, a fully enlightened being. This is the power of metta. It is not weak or passive. It is the most powerful protective force in the universe. It is the strength that disarms hatred. In your daily life, you can use this practice. When stuck in traffic, instead of anger, offer metta to the other drivers. When dealing with a difficult colleague, silently wish them peace. When you stumble or make a mistake, instead of lashing yourself with criticism, offer the gentle rain of kindness to your own heart. Metta is a skill. It is a cultivation. The more you practice it, the more it becomes your natural way of being. It is the light that drives out darkness, the warmth that thaws the coldest heart, and the path to becoming a true friend to yourself and to the entire world. 17. Karuna, compassion, sharing the burden. If the practice of loving kindness, metta, is the gentle rain that we learn to shower upon the entire world without discrimination, then what happens when that rain falls upon the dry, cracked earth of suffering? The heart's response to this sight, its natural impulse in the face of pain, is called karuna. This is the second of the great divine abodes. This is the practice of compassion. If metta is the sincere wish for all beings to be happy and well, karuna is the equally sincere wish for all beings to be free from suffering. It is the trembling of the heart, the quivering of the soul, when it comes into contact with pain, whether our own or another's. It is what happens when our boundless friendliness meets the reality of dukkha. It is essential, right from the start, to distinguish true compassion from its common counterfeits. Compassion is not pity. Pity looks down from a place of superiority. It creates distance. It says, "Oh, you poor, unfortunate thing. I am so glad I am not in your position." Pity reinforces the separation between me, the fortunate one, and you, the suffering one. Compassion, karuna, does the opposite. It stands on the same level. It closes the distance. It recognizes our shared humanity and shared vulnerability. It says, "I am with you in this. Your suffering is not foreign to me." Pity is a feeling of separation. Compassion is an experience of profound connection. Furthermore, true compassion is not idiot compassion, the kind of blind, enabling that avoids conflict at all costs. Sometimes, the most compassionate action is to say no, to set a firm boundary, or to speak a difficult truth. Compassion is not weak, it is courageous. It is the marriage of a soft heart and a strong mind. True karuna is an expression of wisdom. In essence, compassion is the combination of clear seeing and a loving heart. It is seeing the suffering of the world with the clarity of wisdom and responding with the warmth of metta. It is the engine that transforms our spiritual practice from a purely personal pursuit of peace into an active engagement with the world. There is a story from the time of the Buddha that illustrates the nature of wise compassion with devastating power. It is the story of a woman named Patakara. She was the daughter of a wealthy merchant who fell in love with one of her family's servants. They ran away together and lived in the forest. When she became pregnant with her second child, she set out to return to her parents' home for the birth, as was the custom. But a great storm arose. Her husband went to cut wood for a shelter and was bitten by a venomous snake and died instantly. That night, alone in the storm, she gave birth to her second son. The next morning, heartbroken, she continued her journey with her two children. She came to a swollen, raging river. It was too dangerous to cross with both children at once. So, she left her older son on the bank, telling him to wait, and carried her fragile newborn across the torrent. She placed the baby on the far side and started back to get her other son. As she was halfway across the river, a large hawk swooped down from the sky, seized her newborn baby in its talons, and flew away. Patakara screamed in horror. Her older son, on the other bank, heard her screams and, thinking she was calling for him, waded into the river. The powerful current immediately swept him away, and he drowned before her eyes. In the space of a single day, she had lost her husband and both of her children. Dazed, shattered, she somehow continued on her journey to her parents' home, her only remaining refuge. As she approached the city, she saw a man coming from it, and she asked for news of her family. The man looked at her with pity and told her that the great storm of the previous night had caused their house to collapse, killing her mother, her father, and her brother. Their bodies were being cremated on a single funeral pyre at that very moment. At this news, something inside Patakara snapped. The compounded grief was too much for any human mind to bear. She lost her sanity completely. She tore off her clothes and began to wander through the streets, naked, weeping, not knowing who she was or what she was doing. People mocked her, called her a madwoman, and threw stones and rubbish at her. One day, in her aimless wandering, she stumbled into the grove where the Buddha was teaching. The crowd tried to block her, to push the madwoman away, but the Buddha stopped them. He saw not a crazy person, but a being drowning in an ocean of suffering. And his response is a masterclass in compassion. He did not immediately preach a sermon to her. He did not offer her complex philosophy. His first act was one of immediate, practical care. He looked at her with eyes of profound gentleness and said, simply, "Sister, recover your mindfulness." In calling her sister, he restored her humanity. He brought her back into the fold of human connection. Then, a man in the crowd, moved by the Buddha's example, threw her his outer cloak. The Buddha had someone help her put it on, restoring her dignity. Only after her basic human needs for safety and dignity were met did he offer the teaching. He knew her mind was not ready for simple platitudes, so he spoke a truth as vast as her grief. He told her that over her countless lifetimes in the endless cycle of samsara, the amount of tears she has shed for lost husbands, lost sons, and lost parents would be greater than all the water in the 4 great oceans. This teaching, which might sound overwhelming, was for her a profoundly compassionate act. It did for her what the mustard seed did for Kisa Gotami. It contextualized her pain. It showed her that her suffering, while immense, was not unique. It was the shared suffering of all beings trapped in the cycle of clinging to that which is impermanent. And most importantly, it pointed to the cause, the clinging itself, and therefore, to the possibility of an end to the tears. Patakara awakened on the spot and became one of the foremost female disciples, a great teacher of the Dharma in her own right. The story shows us that compassion has 2 wings. The first wing is immediate, practical care, the cloak, the kind word. The second wing is liberating wisdom, the teaching that points to the root of suffering and the path to its end. We need both to fly. How do we practice this in our own lives? It begins with how we respond to the suffering of others. When a friend comes to you with a problem, remember the Buddha's first action. Is your first impulse to offer advice, to fix it, to tell them what they should do? The compassionate response is often much simpler. It is to offer the cloak of your full, non-judgmental attention. It is to listen deeply. It is to just be with them in their pain, sharing the shelter of your presence. When you encounter someone acting out in anger or arrogance, you can practice seeing with the eyes of compassion. Look behind the difficult behavior. Can you see the fear, the insecurity, the suffering that is driving them? This doesn't mean you condone their actions, but it stops you from meeting their anger with more anger. You see their empty boat and feel compassion for the suffering that causes them to drift so aimlessly. And perhaps most importantly, we must learn to turn this compassionate gaze inward. Self-compassion is not self-pity or self-indulgence. It is treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a dear friend. When you make a mistake, when you fail, when you are overwhelmed by a painful emotion, what is your first response? Is it the harsh voice of the inner critic, the inner Devadatta, that tells you are stupid, weak, or worthless? Self-compassion is the practice of meeting your own suffering with the tenderness of a loving parent. You can place a hand on your heart and acknowledge, this is a moment of pain, this is really hard. You can offer yourself words of kindness. May I be gentle with myself. May I accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. May I be free from this pain. This practice is a powerful antidote to the pervasive suffering caused by shame and self-judgment. Karuna is the heart's brave response to the reality of life. It is the willingness to be touched by pain, to share the burden of suffering, and to keep your heart open when it most wants to close. It is what gives our lives meaning and our practice purpose. It is the discovery that in the act of sharing the shelter, we find ourselves at home in the world, connected to all beings, all shivering in the same beautiful, terrible, and precious rain. 18. Mudita, sympathetic joy, celebrating the happiness of others. We have cultivated the unconditional friendliness of metta, and we have opened our hearts to the world's pain with the compassion of karuna. Now we arrive at the third of the four divine abodes, a quality of heart that can be one of the most challenging to develop, and for that reason, one of the most precious and liberating. This is the practice of mudita, or sympathetic joy. Mudita is the ability to feel happiness in the happiness of others. It is the genuine, wholehearted celebration of another person's good fortune, success, and well-being. If compassion is the heart's response to suffering, mudita is the heart's response to joy. It is the opposite of envy and jealousy. It is the profound understanding that happiness is not a limited resource. In our modern culture, this can be a difficult practice. We are often raised with a deep-seated scarcity mindset. We are taught to compete, to compare, to measure our own worth against the accomplishments of others. Social media becomes a constant, curated feed of other people's successes, their beautiful vacations, their promotions, their happy relationships. It can feel as though everyone else is winning, and their victory somehow highlights our own lack. This mindset turns the world into a grim competition, where every piece of good news for someone else can feel like bad news for us. Let's imagine that happiness is a great bonfire on a cold, dark night. The scarcity mindset, the mindset of envy, tells us that there is only a limited pile of logs. When we see someone else add a log to the fire, when they get the job we wanted, when they find a loving partner, when they achieve something wonderful, we feel as if they have taken our log. We stand back in the cold shadows, shivering with resentment, believing their fire has somehow stolen our warmth. This is a painful and lonely prison. Mudita is the key that unlocks this prison. It is the wisdom to understand that when someone else adds a log to the bonfire, the fire grows larger, warmer, and brighter for everyone. Their success does not diminish the world, it enriches it. Their joy does not subtract from our potential for happiness. It adds to the total sum of well-being on the planet. Mudita is the joyful and wise act of stepping out of the cold shadows of our own envy and coming closer to the fire, to share in the warmth and light of another's good fortune. To understand mudita more clearly, it helps to know what it is not. Its obvious opposite, its far enemy, is jealousy and envy. This is the painful contraction of the heart that says, I want what you have, and I resent you for having it. But there is also a near enemy, a counterfeit emotion that can masquerade as mudita. This is a kind of giddy excitement or superficial praise that is still self-referential. It can be the fawning celebration of a celebrity's success, hoping to gain some reflected glory, or it can be the hollow, I'm so happy for you, offered to a friend, while a knot of resentment tightens in our stomach. True mudita is selfless. It is a pure, unadulterated appreciation of another's joy for its own sake. There is a story about the Buddha's chief lay patron, a wealthy merchant named Anathapindika, that beautifully illustrates this quality. Anathapindika wanted to offer a place for the Buddha and his community of monks and nuns to stay during the rainy season. He found a beautiful park, the Jetavana Grove, but its owner, a prince, would only sell it if Anathapindika covered the entire ground with gold coins. In an act of incredible generosity, Anathapindika agreed. He had cartloads of gold brought from his treasury and began laying the coins edge to edge, covering the earth. As this monumental work was being completed, the Buddha's great disciple, Sariputta, turned to him and asked what he was feeling. Anathapindika's response was a perfect expression of mudita. His face was radiant with joy, not because of his own wealth or his own grand gesture, but because of the happiness his actions would bring to others. He felt joy at the thought of the Buddha having a place of refuge. He felt joy at the thought of the monks and nuns being safe and comfortable. And he felt joy at the thought of the countless future generations who would come to this grove and hear the liberating teachings of the Dharma. His happiness was not in his own accomplishment, but in the good fortune of others. How do we begin to cultivate this boundless heart? Like metta, it is a meditation that we can practice. You can start by bringing to mind a dear friend, someone you truly love, who has recently experienced some good fortune. Perhaps they got a new job, fell in love, or simply had a wonderful day. Picture their smile, the light in their eyes. Instead of letting your mind immediately compare their situation to your own, simply try to share in their happiness. Let their joy touch your heart. Silently, you can offer the phrase, I am so happy for you. May your joy and your good fortune continue. May they increase. Feel the genuine warmth of this wish. Then, you can practice mudita for yourself. This might sound strange, but it is a powerful way to counteract the inner critic that so often dismisses our own goodness. Bring to mind a past accomplishment, a moment you were proud of, a quality you possess, that you value perhaps, your kindness or your perseverance. Instead of letting feelings of arrogance arise, simply appreciate these things with a quiet joy. I am grateful for this quality. I appreciate this moment of well-being. This is learning to be a friend to your own goodness. Next, you expand the circle to a neutral person. As you go about your day, you might see strangers laughing together, a child playing with delight in a park, a couple holding hands. Your habitual mind might ignore them, but with the practice of mudita, you can consciously take a moment to notice their happiness and silently rejoice in it. How wonderful! May their happiness continue. In doing this, you start to see that the world is filled with little pockets of joy and that you can share in all of them. The most advanced and healing practice is to direct mudita towards someone whose success triggers your envy, a colleague, a rival, someone on social media. This is where you directly confront the scarcity mindset. The first step is to mindfully acknowledge the feeling of envy. Envy is present, This is painful. Don't judge it. Just see it. Then, gently, you can begin to apply the antidote. Remind yourself of the bonfire. Their success does not take anything away from me. The world is a little brighter because of their happiness. They are a human being, just like me, who wants to be happy. May they enjoy their success. May their good fortune be stable. This is not easy. It takes courage. But every time you do it, you are weakening the chains of envy and strengthening the muscle of your own heart's freedom. You can bring this practice into every part of your life. When you are scrolling through social media, you can transform it from an exercise in comparison into a practice of mudita. For every happy announcement, take a breath and offer a genuine, silent, "I'm happy for you." Notice how this changes the entire quality of the experience. At work, when your colleague gets praise, step up and offer a sincere congratulation. Feel their success as a win for the whole team. Envy is a dark and lonely prison. It sentences us to a life of constant comparison, a life where our own happiness is perpetually held hostage by the successes of others. It is an exhausting and unwinnable game. Mudita is the master key that unlocks the prison door. It opens us up to a universe of limitless joy. When you can feel happy for the happiness of others, you suddenly have infinite opportunities to feel happy every single day. The joy of every being you meet becomes a source of nourishment for your own heart. Your capacity for happiness becomes boundless. This is the gift of sympathetic joy. It is the practice of discovering that the warmest fire is the one we all share. 19. Upekkha, equanimity. The eye of the hurricane. We have journeyed through the radiant warmth of loving kindness, the trembling heart of compassion, and the selfless celebration of sympathetic joy. Now we arrive at the fourth and final of the divine abodes, the great pinnacle and balancing factor that holds all the others in a perfect, harmonious embrace. This is the practice of upekkha, or equanimity. If metta, karuna, and mudita are the beautiful, vibrant colors on the artist's palette, upekkha is the steady hand and the clear eye of the artist who knows how to use them wisely. It is a state of profound balance, spaciousness, and non-reactivity. It is the ability to meet the changing waves of life with a mind that is open, steady, and free. It is absolutely vital to understand what equanimity is not. Its greatest counterfeit, its near enemy, is indifference. From the outside, they can look similar. Both appear calm and unresponsive, but internally, they are worlds apart. Indifference is a cold, withdrawn state. It is a shutdown of the heart. It says, "I don't care. It's not my problem." It is a form of aversion, a way of protecting a fragile self by refusing to engage. Equanimity, upekkha, is the opposite. It is born from the deepest engagement with life, from a heart that is wide open and full of love. It is the fruit of wisdom. It does not say, "I don't care." It says, "I care deeply, and because I care, I will not be thrown off balance by the winds of change, so that I may respond with clarity and grace." Indifference is a closed door. Equanimity is a vast, open field. Imagine that life is a great hurricane. Constantly swirling around us are the 8 worldly winds, as the Buddha called them: pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute. The ordinary, reactive mind lives in the outer bands of this hurricane. It is violently thrown about by these winds. We are ecstatic when we experience pleasure and devastated When we experience pain, we are inflated by praise and crushed by blame. We desperately grasp for gain and live in terror of loss. Our happiness is entirely dependent on which way the wind is blowing at any given moment. It is an exhausting and perilous way to live. Equanimity is the practice of discovering the eye of the hurricane. The storm of life still rages. The winds of praise and blame still howl. The waves of gain and loss still crash. The practice of upekkha does not stop the storm. It allows us to find that place of profound, unshakable stillness that exists at the very center of it all. From this calm center, we can watch the storm with clarity and compassion without being swept away. This unshakable balance is not something we manufacture through sheer willpower. It arises naturally from a deep, experiential understanding of the truths we have already explored. Equanimity is grounded in the wisdom of anicca, impermanence. The mind of equanimity knows that pleasant feelings are like bubbles on the water. They arise, they shimmer, and they pop, so it doesn't desperately cling to them. It also knows that painful feelings are like storm clouds. They gather, they release their rain, and then they pass. So it doesn't desperately fight them. It can allow pleasure and pain to flow through it, knowing that neither is a permanent residence. Equanimity is also grounded in the wisdom of anatta, no self. When the winds of praise blow our way, the mind of equanimity understands who exactly is being praised. This temporary collection of body and mind, this ever-changing process. The praise doesn't land on a solid target, so it doesn't inflate a fictional ego. When the winds of blame arrive, the same insight applies. Who is being blamed? Without a solid separate me to defend, criticism loses its sting. It is just sound waves in the air, a story in another person's mind. It's an empty boat, and equanimity is grounded in a wise understanding of karma, of cause and effect. It knows that we are the owners of our intentions and our actions, but we are not the owners of the results. We can control our effort, but we cannot control the outcome. So we pour our heart into acting with kindness and wisdom, and then we release the results to the universe. This frees us from the immense anxiety of trying to control the uncontrollable. There is an old wisdom story that captures the spirit of upekkha perfectly. A farmer in a small village had a prized horse. One day, the horse ran away. His neighbors came to console him. "Oh, what terrible luck," they said. The farmer simply replied, "Maybe." A week later, the horse returned, and it brought with it a dozen wild horses. The neighbors rushed over to celebrate. "What incredible good luck," they exclaimed. The farmer replied, "Maybe." The next day, the farmer's son was trying to tame one of the wild horses when he was thrown and broke his leg. The neighbors came to offer their sympathy. "How awful. This is truly bad luck," they said. The farmer, again, just said, "Maybe." A few weeks later, the emperor's army came through the village, conscripting every able-bodied young man for a dangerous war. They took the sons of all the other villagers, but when they saw the farmer's son with his broken leg, they passed him by. The neighbors came to congratulate the farmer. "You are so fortunate. This turned out to be amazing good luck." The farmer looked at them and said, calmly, "Maybe." This farmer lived in the eye of the hurricane. He understood that we are incapable of knowing the full story of our lives from the limited vantage point of a single event. He resisted the mind's frantic need to label everything as good or bad. He rested in the spacious wisdom of maybe. This is the heart of equanimity. This spacious wisdom is what allows upekkha to balance the other three divine abodes. Without equanimity, metta, loving kindness, can turn into clinging attachment. We love someone so much that we cannot bear for them to suffer, and their pain shatters our own peace. Equanimity allows us to love fully and freely, while accepting the reality of anicca for those we love. Without equanimity, karuna, compassion, can lead to burnout. We can become so overwhelmed by the suffering of the world that we drown in it. Equanimity provides the stable ground upon which we can stand to offer effective help, caring deeply without being crushed. And without equanimity, mudita, sympathetic joy, can become giddy excitement, attached to another's good fortune, leading to disappointment when it inevitably changes. Equanimity allows us to celebrate joy without clinging to it. How do we practice this in our lives? One way is to consciously notice the 8 worldly winds as they blow. When someone praises you, notice the little lift, the inflation of the ego. When someone criticizes you, notice the sting, the contraction. Just see it. The act of seeing it with mindfulness begins to create a space between the wind and your reaction. Another powerful practice is to work with the phrase, "It's like this now." A difficult emotion arises. Instead of fighting it, you acknowledge it. Ah, sadness is here. It's like this now. You receive wonderful news. Instead of getting carried away, you note, ah, joy is present. It's like this now. This simple phrase is a tool for radical acceptance. It grounds you in the reality of the present moment, whatever it holds. It is a way of saying maybe to the unfolding story of your life. Equanimity is the culmination of the path of the heart. It is the peace that passeth all understanding, not because it is mystical, but because it is no longer dependent on understanding, on things making sense, on life being a certain way. It is the great peace that comes from embracing reality as it is. It is the discovery of the unshakable stillness at your core, the quiet, luminous eye of the storm. 20. Nibbana. Nirvana, the unbinding of the heart. Our journey through the landscape of the Dharma has led us through many terrains. We have navigated with the raft of the teachings, tamed the wild elephant of the mind, walked the middle way of the lute, and found shelter in the divine abodes of the heart. We have come to understand the diagnosis of our condition, dukkha, and its cause, tanha. Now, we arrive at the destination. We arrive at the third noble truth, the prognosis of a perfect cure made manifest. We arrive at the concept of nibbana, or in Sanskrit, nirvana. This word carries with it a universe of mystique, and often a great deal of misunderstanding. We hear nirvana, and we might think of a blissful, heaven-like paradise one goes to after death. Or we might hear its literal translation, to extinguish, and imagine a cold, nihilistic annihilation of the self. Both of these ideas miss the profound, psychological, and liberating reality that the Buddha was pointing to. Nibbana is not a place. It is a state of being. It is not something that happens after you die. It is a reality that can be realized right here, in this very life. And what is extinguished is not your existence. What is extinguished are the fires that cause all your suffering. The fire of greed, the fire of hatred, and the fire of ignorance. Nibbana is not the end of you. It is the end of your pain. It is the end of the prison, not the end of the prisoner. Perhaps the most helpful way to understand Nibbana is to think of your mind in its ordinary, unenlightened state as a complex and painful knot. This knot has been tied over countless lifetimes. Each strand is a conditioned habit. There is the strand of craving, always pulling you toward what you want. There is the strand of aversion, always trying to push away what you don't want. There are the strands of pride, jealousy, fear, and at the very center, the deep tangled strand of ignorance the belief in a solid, separate self. Our whole life is spent yanking on this knot. When we get something we want, we pull one way. When we lose something, we pull another. Every reaction, every judgment, every moment of clinging only serves to pull the knot tighter, making the constriction more painful. This painful tightness, this feeling of being trapped and constricted, is dukkha. The entire Noble Eightfold Path, every teaching we have explored, is a masterclass in how to gently, patiently, and skillfully untie this knot. Recognizing the poisoned arrow is seeing for the first time that this painful knot exists, and that untying it is the most urgent and important task of our lives. Taming the wild elephant of the mind through mindfulness is the skill of holding the rope steady enough to see the knot's intricate structure, instead of just blindly pulling on it. The middle way of the lute is the wisdom of applying just the right amount of gentle pressure, understanding that pulling too hard only tightens the knot, and complete slackness will never undo it. The 4 divine abodes are the lubricants that soften the old, dry strands of the rope. Metta, loving kindness, softens the brittle strands of ill will. Karuna, compassion, softens the sharp edges of cruelty and judgment. Mudita, sympathetic joy, loosens the tight grip of envy. And upekkha, equanimity, allows us to work with the whole tangled mess without getting our own fingers caught, without being thrown off balance by the process. And what is the final, crucial insight that allows the knot to come undone? It is the direct seeing of anatta, no self. It is the realization that at the center of this complex, painful knot, there is nothing. There is no solid me being constricted. The knot itself is an impersonal process of cause and effect. With this insight, the central tension is released. The foundational reason for all the pulling and tightening the desire to protect and promote a fictional self is seen through as a delusion. And in that seeing, the knot dissolves. The rope does not vanish. The mind does not disappear, but it is finally free. It lies open, straight, and unbound. This state of being unbound, this release of all tension, this profound ease and freedom, is nibbana. What does a mind that has realized this state feel like? It is characterized by an unshakable peace. It still experiences the world. The winds of praise and blame still blow. The waves of gain and loss still crash. But they no longer have the power to disturb the mind's deep, ocean-like calm. The eye of the hurricane has become one's permanent home. The liberated mind is filled with a boundless compassion. The illusion of a separate self has been shattered, and with it, all basis for selfishness. The suffering of another is no longer seen as their problem. It is felt as our shared condition, and the natural response is an effortless, spontaneous desire to help, to heal, to alleviate pain wherever it is found. Action for an enlightened being becomes spontaneous and graceful. They do not act from a sense of should or from a fear of consequences. Their ethics flow naturally from their wisdom, as water flows downhill. Kindness is no longer a discipline, it is an instinct. And finally, the liberated mind is free from the deepest fear that haunts humanity, the fear of death. The terror of death is rooted in the fear of the annihilation of the precious self. But when you have seen, with absolute certainty, that this solid self was a fiction all along, then the fear of its ending loses its grip. One can live with an open hand, and one can die with an open hand. In the teachings, a subtle distinction is sometimes made. The state of an enlightened being who is still alive like the Buddha after his awakening is called nibbana with remainder. The fires of greed, hatred, and delusion have been completely extinguished so there is no more mental suffering. However, the remainder of the physical body and its associated feelings still exists. The cart is still rolling along. An enlightened being still feels physical pain if they stub their toe, but it doesn't cause mental anguish because there is no self to take it personally. Then there is what is called parinibbana, or the final nibbana, which occurs at the physical death of an enlightened being. At this point, the conditioned process of the mind and body, the cart itself, comes to a final end and is not reborn. The Buddha described this state as beyond all concepts, unborn, uncreated, and unconditioned. It is a mystery that lies beyond the limits of language. But we do not have to wait for some far-off, ultimate realization to experience the taste of this freedom. Nibbana is not an all-or-nothing affair. Every single time you practice the path, you experience a small moment of unbinding. Every time you choose a kind response over an angry one, you loosen the knot. Every time you let go of a petty grudge, you untie a strand. Every time you sit in meditation and allow a painful thought to pass without grabbing onto it, you taste freedom. Every moment of pure, selfless presence with another person is a moment of nibbana. The path is not about a desperate struggle to reach a distant goal. The path is a continuous series of these small, graceful acts of letting go. Nibbana is not a future prize to be won. It is the ever-present, natural state of your own mind, waiting to be revealed. It is the peace that is discovered when you finally stop tightening the knot, when you finally give yourself permission to be free. It is the ultimate homecoming. The aim is not to become some perfect Buddhist. And so, our 3-hour journey together comes to a close. We began in the restless noise of a modern morning, feeling the weight of the world, the sense of being a ship tossed on a turbulent sea. We have traveled far since then. We have walked through ancient forests, crossed wide rivers, and sat in the quiet gardens of the mind. We have listened to the stories of travelers and kings, of acrobats and grieving mothers. We have looked deeply into the nature of our own experience, its constant change, its inherent friction, and its mysterious, selfless nature. We have seen that the path laid out by the Buddha is not one of escaping from life, but of moving more deeply into it. It is a path of radical honesty, of looking directly at our suffering without fear. It is a path of profound self-compassion, of learning to tame the wild elephant of our mind with a gentle hand. It is a path of boundless love, of discovering that our own well-being is inextricably linked with the well-being of all life. It is the path of unbinding the knots of fear and craving that constrict our hearts, so that we may know the freedom that is our birthright. The teachings we have explored are not meant to be abstract philosophies. They are tools, they are rafts, they are medicines, they are maps. Their only value lies in their application. A map is useless if it is not used to navigate the terrain. A medicine is useless if it remains in the bottle. So the real journey is not the one we have just taken with these words. The real journey begins now, in this moment, and continues into the next. It begins when you meet a moment of frustration, not with blind reactivity, but with the curiosity of the Four Noble Truths. It begins when you encounter another person, not as an other, but with the open heart of metta. It begins when you feel the sting of envy and choose, even for a second, to practice mudita. It begins when you meet the chaos of your day, not from the frantic edge of the storm, but from the quiet, spacious eye of upekkha. Do not be discouraged if the path feels long, or if the weeds in the garden of your mind seem persistent. Remember the lesson of the lute: not too tight, not too slack. Walk with a gentle, persistent, and compassionate effort. The goal is not perfection, but presence. The aim is not to become some perfect Buddhist, but simply to become a little freer, a little kinder, and a little more peaceful, day by day. The peace you seek is not in a distant land or an ancient text. It was never lost. It is here. It is the stillness beneath the noise. It is the clear water beneath the ripples. It is the vast, open sky that holds the passing clouds. It is the natural radiance of your own unbound heart. Thank you for walking this path with me. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free.